Good evening, everybody. It is August 23rd. It's a select board meeting at 6:30, and I would like to call the meeting to order and get an acceptance of the agenda.
So, second?
Second one is Canfield. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Ms. Curran unfortunately could not be with us this evening. She's got a work event that she could not get out of, so it'll be before us. Before we start the meetings, I'd like to read this. And again, we ask all of our communities in town to read this before they begin their meetings. The Scituate Select Board is committed to providing an environment of respect during meetings. We ask all members to interact in a polite manner, even when there is disagreement. We value the participation of our community, and we want all participants, including marginalized and minoritized communities, to feel welcome and respected. We ask our community members and all who participate to commit to these standards to support and respect our community. Thank you. Are there any walk-ins this evening? Yes, sir.
Hopefully I can do it right from my seat, but Steve Bjorkman, presently 861 Main Street in Norwell, but my heart's in Scituate. About 7 years ago, the town meeting adopted this new position of a planning director, economic director or something. And for those of you who happen to be at town meeting, I stood up and I was pretty vocal saying that I thought that it was not a good thing for the town to create that position and that we actually needed more help in the conservation office and in the planning office. And as most of you know, I do a lot of development in town, I try to help a lot of people. They're completely backed up in those offices. And I would hope that if it's possible at all to try to delete that position in the near future, not reappoint somebody to that position, maybe go to town meeting and see if we could create 2 part-time positions in the offices to help out there. And if you haven't seen the turmoil in there, spend a little time in there and see how it goes, because it's getting more and more difficult to go through the permitting process, not only for developers, but also just for homeowners who want to do things with the amount of regulations that we have in place now. So anything that you guys can do that will help those offices run a little bit smoother would be greatly appreciated. And I might be the only one speaking, but I know that there are a lot of other people that feel the same way and have asked me to come in and voice an opinion. So hopefully you guys can look into that. That's all.
Thanks for your input.
Thank you.
Any other walk-ins? All right, seeing none, we will go right over to the report of the town administrator.
Good evening, we're gonna start as always with our COVID data. Maven number for this week was 15, which is down from 17. Positivity rating over the past 14 days was 9.17%, which is up from 8.94% the previous week. Plymouth County is at 8.86, down from 8.95. Statewide, for the last 7 days was 7.84, down very slightly from last week's 8.05. The number of individuals in ICU was 64, up from 57. And there are 24 patients intubated, which is double last week's 12. So again, the numbers seem to be kind of static, they're going up, they're going down. We'll keep saying COVID is still here. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you haven't been boosted, get your boosters. If you have health issues, you should continue to wear a mask if you're in places where there are going to be large crowds. The reservoir is at minus 44.5 inches. Last week we were at minus 40.25. Tack Factory Pond was at minus 13.75. Last week we were at minus 10.75. The average daily demand was 1.374 million gallons per day, which is essentially the same as the previous week's 1.376 million gallons per day. Commonwealth has put us in a critical drought right now. We are in a tier 4 water ban. All non-essential watering has been banned at this point. The water department is finding violators. There's 1 people first. If we continue, we will be fine. As the drought worsens, we did get some rain, which is great. I'm not sure how much that's going to help our wells, but it will help the surface water. But with the drought, the wells produce less water. As the wells produce less water, we use the water treatment plant more. And as we use the water treatment plant more, we get more of the manganese water into the system, causing the groundwater. We are working currently with our consultant and with DEP to come up with a short-term fix to the manganese at the plant. As the board knows, the long-term solution is a new water treatment plant that will treat the manganese. Our contractor Selco is working on Old Driftway this week. We were scheduled to do some water main work in North Scituate on Gannett Country Way. With the MBTA, Keolis, the operator of the commuter rail, pushed that back until next week. We have to do some pipe work around the track, so they have to be involved. There's a loop we need to finish up there, so we're gonna do that, but we need to wait for Keolis and the MBTA to get us to go ahead. If you've been on Old Oak Bucket and Maple Street, they look great, they're all striped, they're all paved. We'll continue with the striping when the weather gets better, we can put the fog lines. Chief Thompson is here, he will back up that I've talked to him several times. We will be doing intensive enforcement, especially on Old Oak Bucket with the new paving. So if you're up there, please slow down. We are working with the neighborhood behind Town Hall, the utility road neighborhood. We need to pulverize those roads in preparation for paving. We'll also be doing some paving this week on Country Way towards North Scituate. Some of the really bad areas, we're gonna overlay those, and fix them at this point. Last meeting, the board approved the contract with Spencer Preservation Group to oversee the design and construction of the lighthouse project. They're scheduled to be out there next week on Thursday and Friday with their engineering teams. They'll have lifts and things around the lighthouse, they'll be taking pictures, doing surveys, photos and stuff. So if people see them, that's what they're gonna be doing out there, it's weather dependent. We need to proceed very quickly with this, given the position of the lighthouse. The first question we're gonna have is whether we can fix it in place or remove it. We're about 98% sure at this point that we're gonna have to take the lighthouse off in order to make repairs to the structure. And then the next big threshold question will be, can the lighthouse lantern room be repaired, or will it need to be replaced? That's still to be determined. We'll get a better idea when we get out there next week and get a look at what's going on. The home elevation seminar is also next week, August 30th from 5 to 6 in the library community room. It's a free seminar, we'll answer questions for homeowners about home elevation projects, why homeowners should consider it, how much it might cost, and opportunities for funding, among other topics. If you're interested, please email Corey Miles at cmiles@situatema.com so she can have a handle on attendance. We were just under 60 signed up as of yesterday, so we expect that to be in the 60 to 70 range. Great seminars put on by NEMA, a lot of good information. So if you live on the coast and are thinking about elevating your house, it's a good one to be at. Good news, it's back this Friday. Probably the happiest thing we do is touch a truck. We'll be out front again, the DPW. We'll have all their trucks here from 9 to 11:30. It's a free event. We'll have popcorn and water, but the kids, it's not about big trucks they love. So if you're around, it's a free event. It's very well attended. We don't see a lot of people there this Friday. Just a reminder for people, although the calendar is summer, a lot of our lifeguards, it's fall already, they've gone back to school. At this point, there are no lifeguards on Egypt Beach or Hammerock Beach. The Minded Beach lifeguards, will be there through the end of this weekend, and then they will be gone, and the Peggotty Beach lifeguards, the last day for them is September 5th. So as the lifeguards go back, we do have to take them off the beach if you're looking for lifeguards. Right now, Minded and Peggotty are the only two that will have lifeguards. And then finally, I know Kevin's here, we've got some rain, we're starting to think about snow. We are short plow contractors, so if you're interested in applying for the town, please get in touch with the DPW. We do have a couple of positions in the highway and grounds department, so if you're interested in that, please let us know, we can get you an interview pretty quick, and get some people on. That's what I have for today.
Thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Yeah.
Yeah, Jim, now that we have closed on an owned waterfront property, there's a lot of curiosity out in the public as to what the property looks like. I'm not suggesting that we let anyone into the houses because for safety reasons, but if we could have a couple of Saturdays before winter hits where people could just come up, maybe park over the MBTA lot, walk over and just look at the property. It's quite beautiful. And I know that we don't want uncontrolled access to it at this point until, we have plans in place in terms of security, but a couple of Saturdays or Sundays over the next couple of months, we could let people get in.
We haven't posted it as no trespassing, we did put up a chain, because we don't want people driving up there.
Right.
If people wanna walk on the property right now, they're entirely welcome to, we'll just try to keep the cars out of there.
Right.
But if you wanted to do something where we have locked it, and maybe had someone there, we can try to arrange something. We've changed all the locks, and we are looking to engage someone. There is things left in the house in the barn.
Lots of things.
So we are looking to engage someone to come out and put a value on those, so we can make a plan on how to clean those buildings out. But if people wanna go out there, they are welcome to go out and walk around, but just not on the
But you
beach.
can't park out there.
Yeah.
So you don't want anyone parking in those streets there,
It's
they're very
too narrow
narrow.
park on that, so.
Yeah. So, well, maybe we can put some sort of announcement on the website that, people wanna go and look. I just know there's a lot of curiosity, and it is quite beautiful.
It's a beautiful piece of property. We got back behind the house, it's really nice.
I think it'd be great for the public to be able to see the
Yeah,
property.
they're welcome to go out and walk, we just don't wanna drive.
Okay, okay, great, thank you. That's all.
And maybe we could get a video of the house, maybe septic over. Oh, sorry for that.
I think you only wanna get on the outside, that's funny. There's a lot of stuff on the inside.
I'm good, no, that's great idea.
Just a question, what did you hear from Attorney Galvin last week?
I have it, I'll send it over to you. I got it, yeah. I haven't finished reading it, but I have it, yeah, it's still around. Yeah, I just gotta send it out to you, Tony, it's actually sitting on my desktop.
Okay. So are we gonna plan a meeting for the come in and talk to us?
Probably after town meeting at this point, but yeah. I feel I deal with one thing at a time,
Well, that's not true.
Alright,
Leave it at that.
great. If that's it, then we'll move on to our 6:45, recognition, 25 years of service. Chief Thompson, good evening. Mark, how are you?
Thanks, how are you?
Great.
Thanks for having me. Here for Officer Goya this evening, and just wanted to take a minute or two. He unfortunately couldn't be in this evening, but I'm sure he'll be passing this along. It's kind of an interesting thing, I talked about this before, when we come to these big milestones, to go back through, get an officer personnel file, and you get to see a snapshot of what's done. Tim's been here for 25 years. As I was going through his personnel file, there were a number of letters of thanks and appreciation from people, but there was one that jumped out, and I just wanted to read a little piece of it if I could. Chief Stewart actually wrote Officer Goya a letter and entitled it "Random Act of Kindness." So I thought it was kind of fitting. So on this is an email that was sent in by a resident. It said, in January of 2018, my father-in-law was trying to shovel the lower part of our driveway in order to make it accessible for the garbage containers, which would be placed in the side for Thursday morning pickup. He is almost 80 years of age with severe hearing problems and no ligaments in his right knee, which gives him a noticeable limp. A police officer on patrol apparently noticed this action and stopped on the side of the street. Although understandably unable to communicate with my father-in-law, the officer picked up a shovel, cleaned the snow by himself, and went out and directed traffic around the cruiser as needed. This almost unreal act of kindness has warmed our hearts and made us so happy to live in this community with such wonderful people. I have no words to say, and sure there are none needed. Just a big thank you and a reminder of how awesome people and good police can actually be. It was just a really, I think, kind of summed up a bit of Tim, and at the time that this came in, we didn't know who the officer was. And Officer Goya came to mind that this is something that he would do, and turns out it was him. So I thought it was kind of a nice way to kind of sum up 25 years of these things that happen on the road, and Officer Goya is one of those people who will just stop and help somebody out when they need it again. So really appreciate the recognition and giving us 25 years of service.
Great, thank you very much. Anyone want to add anything?
Yeah, I very quickly, I mean, that was the perfect example. And, I love when we do these anniversaries because it's a really good opportunity to thank, all of our service, especially 25 years in the police department is real, it's quite a commitment to our community. So please extend our greatest thanks and congratulations.
Yeah, again, part of it too, it's not just a thank you for the service that's noticed, but the service that goes unnoticed, which is probably the majority of the service that is done with exceptional professionalism and with a sense of duty, and it's just say thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, piggybacking on what both of them said, our police department actually is part of our community. They're not, they're engaging and they're helping and they're directing and they're advising and they're not just this entity here that's trying to keep public safety. They're actually part of the community, and that's a great example, and Tim does a great job doing that. So kudos to him and everybody else in the department.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I'd just like to
Yes.
add, clearly, police officers are ambassadors for the town. And every time they do something like that, it redounds well in the town. So I thank the whole force, and especially those people who served for many years and who do that in Scituate. So thank you. Fire
Andrew, you want to
Yes,
say
yeah, well,
Thank
we're
you.
good.
accepting of this.
Wanted to be nice, thanks very much.
You can deliver this for us?
Absolutely. Thank you, Bryce. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
His name's also on the plaque now, on
Oh,
the
great.
back wall, 25-year employees and recognize.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. All right. Now we have a special event and outdoor entertainment permit, Kim, for a Scituate Community Christmas Cornhole Tournament.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Kim, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Thanks.
Nice new chairs.
Yes. First
We want
time.
our little, what do they call those? Joysticks? I don't know. Whatever they are. We need the headphones.
So what do you want to do?
So we're having a cornhole tournament on October 1st, same as we did last year, at the property at 125 Hamlet Road, otherwise known as the Susan Tiffin House. We used to sit up there one time. It's a fundraiser for Scituate Community Christmas. We filled out all the permits. I think we got everything in. We're having a DJ from 3 to 7, having extreme tailgaters is going to be serving the food. We have 32 teams. Yeah,
Is that a full house?
yep, we sold out in about that.
Andrew, anything to add?
No, it was fabulous event, last.
Are you playing again?
I did not get, I'm gonna just be a viewer.
You can tell them being viewer.
Great time.
That's-
right?
It was, everyone should
That's
sign
what
up.
happens when you break up our team.
Great event, and it goes to community Christmas.
It does, yeah.
It is, how many years community Christmas?
30 plus
30
now,
plus.
but over the past 3 years, we've been doing it year round, so we're helping families year round. We're on track now to help probably twice as many as we did last year, so. And we appreciate Jim and Lorraine and Michelle actually helping out with the weekly updates that we do and mentioning both us and the food pantry. That's really, people have called, so
Great,
it's great.
great event, great cause, and a good fun.
Yeah.
time. Any comments from the board?
No, thank you for doing it.
How about a motion?
Move to approve a special event permit for Scituate Community Christmas Charity Cornhole Tournament to be held on October 1st, 2022, from 2:30 to 7 p.m. at the Susan Tiffin House, 125 Manlock Road, and move to approve an outdoor entertainment permit for a DJ from 2:30 to 7 p.m. on October 1st, 2022 at the same location.
Second by Mr. Goodrich, further discussion? Anyone in the audience have any questions? No? Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 4-0.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Kim.
Okay,
Have a great event.
thank you.
Okay, moving right along, we've got, the rec commission is coming up and they're gonna discuss some potential fee changes to deal with some additional expenses. Hey, guys.
Good evening. Good evening. Hello, Select Board, the Town Administrator. Yes, we're here to propose some fee changes for
Yeah, just,
the fields, a little
you
closer.
just say who you are.
Here we go. I'm Mike Connor, the Chairman of the Rec Commission.
Oh, I'm Jen O'Neill, I'm the rec commissioner.
And we also have Kevin Devon and Maura Glancy from the Rec Department here in case needed. So I'll propose the two motions first if we want, and we can answer any questions or discussion that we need, we'll go from there. So the first one is the Rec Commission recommends the Select Board increase the light fee for class 1 to 4 to $25 an hour, and class 5 to 6 to $50 an hour to cover the cost of the electric bills and turf fields. Should I do both motions now, or should we just do one at a time?
We'll do one at a time, and we can talk.
Okay,
You wanna give us some background? We had a good long meeting about it, talked about it. I can do it, but you can do it.
okay, Jen, if you want to.
Jen?
So,
Yeah, just slide that in.
okay, so,
Kevin did a lot of the math. What has happened is that the new turf field went in, and due to an error on National Grid's part, I want to make sure that that is perfectly clear that this was not an issue with Scituate Rec, this was not an issue with the town of Scituate, this was 100% National Grid's fault. They never turned the meter back on until April of 2022. So we have not been paying for lights since the field was open until starting in April. So the first bill that we received in April was for $58.54, so $5,854, and then going forward, $40.49, and then $3,900. So that totaled $14,243 for April, May, and June, and those were the first bills we received from National Grid. So what Kevin did was he figured out the usage and was able to come up with a fee of $25 an hour, which we're currently not charging to any of class 1 through 3. I don't know if anyone needs to know what class 1 through 3 is. If you haven't, okay, excellent. So this is really the best estimate that we have, since we do have a limited number of bills. And I do know that National Grid has told us that they will be sending an estimated bill in January of 2023 to cover August of 2020 and March 2022, which is 20 months of bills that they would then expect payment on. So I believe that is something that needs to be dealt with outside of recreation. But going forward, we do need to charge for lights, because the current fund that we are using to pay for these lights is just, it's too small to continue to pay for this. Right now, we have some small routine maintenance that we do on the fields, as well as cover the cost for the field coordinator, which for anyone that's ever used a field in Scituate or tried to permit a field in Scituate, you know we need a field coordinator in that position. So that's how we came up with the fee and why we want to move forward with that. Any questions?
Great, I can just add probably a little bit, the school used to have that in their budget prior to the lights being, the full scope that it is now. And I think the school agreed to continue to pay for some portion of it. I believe it was somewhere around $2,500 a month or something that they were paying. And then we discussed the fact that the town probably has some responsibility for it as well, just because it's lit for people to walk and just public use of it. And then try and make up that difference in the fees that they're charging to the users. I think everyone on the committee agreed that they didn't want to, the groups get the money when they charge the user fees, and they didn't want to make that change until the entities could actually put that in their billing for the following year. So I think we took that into consideration when we started this. And Kevin, what was the estimate? Like $100,000 maybe of, we don't really know for sure, but.
Yeah, we really don't know, because we've only had 3 months of bills, and the 3 months we have are heavy use months, right? So April, May, and June. We have no idea what's gonna run in January and February when it's gonna be on the field. Which is another concern as well, because we're not gonna generate any money in those months, so we have to figure out a way to pay for that.
So if it's $3,000 or $4,000 a month, it could be $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of a bill that they're trying. Right. Great, that's pretty much what we went over. Anything to add, Mike? Is that on that topic?
I think that's basically it, Mr. Vignani.
Actually, Tony, if I could just add one more thing. I just want to make sure that people are aware that when the school was responsible for the lights, they did charge the user groups. And I believe that, not being a user during that time, but just doing some research, it's $50.
I believe so,
Yeah.
it's a long time ago, so.
I mean, I think they, who was that, Nicole, I think, the school is probably the largest user with all their high school events and stuff at the fields and during the school season. So I think you're right, they consumed a lot of it and they charged some of that.
Yeah.
And Kevin, one quick question before I bring up, did you get that software that could track stuff, or did that get?
Yeah, so we use a system called Musco for the lights, and there's a report in Musco that can show usage, and you're able to identify user groups. So we couldn't do it going backwards, but we can do it going forward. So for the month of August, I did that, and it was, it's trending so that, when you look at that, you can see all the user groups, and then, we use the multiplier. So we don't have a report that can put kilowatt hours with, actual use, they have something like that, oh, well, we don't have that in the system. You know, for the 3 months that we looked at, the $25 number works. You know, again, it's our best estimate, you know, it's a small amount of bills. You know, and there is that concern about the off-season months, you know, what are we gonna do with that?
Okay, I'll open it up to the board.
I'll ask the obvious question, and I probably know the answer to it as well. Given the fact that it is National Grid's mistake, why should we have to pay a bill if it was their mistake? I mean, we didn't not turn it on.
I agree.
So I don't know if there's any negotiating possibility, Jim, with National Grid. I know we don't want to tip them off because they're good to us, but I have to say that for us to have to come up with all this money,
There will be discussions when the bill comes
I know what they'd say to me with my homeowner's bill. Oh, too bad. Anyway, just thought I could.
Just so I understand, so class 1 and 2, those are our people internal, so the way this is structured, is proposed, is so the school does most of this, when we pointed out, uses the fields the most. So when the school's using them, that's gonna be, that $25 an hour comes out of the school budget.
Right.
And that's how they're gonna be tracked for their contribution, or is there more on top of that? That is that.
I would think that it wouldn't be on top, if you're gonna track it by the hour, probably that would be the bill.
That's what they're.
Yes.
Okay.
Kathy, even though they're heavy user, they still get out there on the supply. So, in September, they're not using a lot of lights because they're on and off before it gets dark.
Yeah.
And then as it goes on, they get more and more, so.
The lights, I believe, come on, Kevin, is it half an hour before sunset is when the lights come on?
Yeah.
And the school used to lights football games, and then when they turn the clocks back, when it was soccer at the end of the season, so that's that was fine.
So obviously, so if somebody signs up to use the field, the light is only gonna take, it's not like the time they're using it, so the lights are.
If somebody's using the field on a Saturday morning,
They're not gonna get on.
they're gonna be charged a lot.
It's only $10 for the lights during the day.
So, this question might actually, it's related, but it might be really for the board to consider for how we're dealing with those revolving funds, and especially with our solar array revolving fund. Because this is one example of what we're gonna get with electricity bills going forward, and if our solar fund is pulling in $650 on average per year, or $651.77 per cost report, and we've set our cap at last time meeting of $485. We had $850,000 sitting there. That we should have a pretty good sense of what we're getting year by year with solar. It should be pretty consistent, and if our cap is much lower than what we're growing, that's money that we're just losing because it's inflation, it's people's money that could be going to pay for electricity bills here, other DPW is gonna get hit with huge electricity bills, everybody is. So I just bring this up because I'm not trying to hijack anything, but this is, I just think we should really consider how we're gonna be using all of these going forward, because this is gonna happen again and again.
So, and Nancy, correct me when I misspeak here, what we do is we charge each department their bill regardless of the fact of what we get through the solar or the wind turbine. And that goes into a revolving fund of money that we have available for the users. That's gonna change dramatically because we voted to shut off the wind turbine in the last town meeting, but what you're suggesting is using some of that money to subsidize some of those.
Yeah, but I mean, again, even with the wind turbine, we're pulling in $670 and we're capped at $550. And there's $1.2 million there, the solar array is $850,000. Even rec programs is $500,000. So just kind of making sure that we're not saving just to save, you know, I mean, that, make sure that we have to help, at least in my personal opinion, that if we can help defray some of these costs, it just might be a way to kind of help. So yeah.
Yeah, just, interested in what Nancy was saying about the, there's a lot more conversation obviously about revolving funds, but, maybe we can revisit that as a sort of policy discussion. Sounds good to me, guys.
Is part of the solar array revolving fund dedicated to some other purpose, like paying down the bond on the middle school? I mean, I know that that's,
It wasn't part of the vote of the financial forecast committee has recommended it every year, and has been done every year.
Yeah.
During one of the bad year, we do those guys. There's $100,000 from solar, and $100,000 from wind turbine to mitigate the impact of the devastation from the middle school and the public safety complex.
So I think, yeah, and not to get off,
no,
but I do think both of you are going in the path of we should talk about what the use of that function is. I think that's Andrew's saying.
and the entire just electrical solar array, how much we can generate, what we're gonna sell, what we can't sell, why we can't put more solar panels on buildings, credits, I mean, it's an insane system right now, in my opinion, so.
Insane.
Insane.
I have one more
Because you
question.
can't understand.
One more question about this actual.
Yes.
I assume that this is for, would take you haven't booked for the coming year, so this isn't changed to anybody, it's already reserved fields, really?
Actually hoping to have this, once you vote to change it, if you vote to change it, I should say, to take effect September 1st, so that it is in place for the fall season.
And how much has been booked already?
That's up to
Yeah, so we've got all the permits in, we're putting them into the system, none of the seasons have started yet.
None of the what, sorry?
None of the sports seasons have started yet.
Okay, so you don't have to
Some
change
fields,
any existing contracts or.
For anybody on the field now,
Okay.
Any questions from the audience? Any comments? Do we want to vote this one? And then we'll get to the next one?
I think there's another change as well, that's included in the motion.
Just a second, I think a separate motion.
Yeah, we're
There's
just,
one motion, I was on one motion.
Oh, it's only one motion?
yeah, we're gonna bring that up next, right?
Okay.
Change? Yeah.
Yeah,
Move separately, or you wanna do it now?
No,
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so the next recommendation from the commission was, for the select board to change the per hour to per game, or the 2.5 hour maximum for classes 5 and 6, in an attempt to generate revenue. I mean, probably that would relate more to the baseball field, I'm guessing, but, I'm not sure if there's I mean, the fields, there's not too many openings for the fields, I mean, Kevin could answer this, but baseball maybe, July mornings and some fall mornings, and maybe soccer Sunday mornings in the summer, literally that's when the field is open, maybe besides in January. But the W rented, we think this was probably costing too much. Some of the other fields and the other towns around here are generating some money, so we figured we'd do a per game fee. That's just per game, so if they wanna rent for a clinic or something like that, and it still goes to per hour, because you get 100 kids in a clinic and whatever, but, if you rent a baseball game, whatever it be, so that's where, we're proposing, if you change the per fee. The class 5 and 6 per hour, instead of per hour, charge per game. It's $150 per game for class 5, $175 per game for class 6.
So Mike, it said it was $150 per hour before, now it's gonna be $150 for 2.5 hours, so it'll be a reduction.
It would be, because before, you did that, and a baseball game was 3 hours, like, honestly, I think the only person that ever played for baseball game there was me. When we had that thing, during COVID, when, we had a couple of Scituate kids were playing, so we rented the field, it was like $400 per night, whatever it was. Great night doing it tomorrow, but, again, we're not sure if people will go to the field, we're thinking, do we wanna rent the field, or just leave the Scituate folk, but it could be a way to maybe generate some money in the fall, and Sunday mornings when the field's not being used, just thinking outside the box. So yes, it would definitely be less, and then again, that's only per game, not per clinic or that kind of stuff, that would still be,
Okay, so it's currently $150 an hour, and you want us to move it to $150 per game.
correct.
Kevin, can I ask a quick question? How many of those do we do? A year, about, not?
Yeah, not a lot. I mean, one of the concerns, Tony, is that it does get costly. You know, we've had these groups, the groups 5 and 6, the class 5 and 6, and they try to negotiate the rate, and the rates are set, so. And then they compare it to other towns, so, you know, to Mike's point, you know, this would make it more attractive to bring those in. There's not a lot of field availability anyway, so it really gotta be more one-offs than a regular thing.
And I agree with you, like $400 is a lot for a baseball field, just, and if you play at night, it's another,
Well, that's why it was, because it was lights, it was, whatever.
questions? No? Any questions from the audience? Great. So I think we agree with it, so we'll take a motion now.
Move that the select board approve the proposed recommendations to the town of Scituate Field Facility Rental Chart brought forward by the Scituate Recreation Commission.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is 4-0. Thank you guys a lot.
Thank you.
The whole committee gets together and they really dive into the details of this stuff.
Appreciate all everyone does, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin, thanks, Maura.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next topic of discussion for a discussion vote is the wastewater treatment plant clarifier improvements.
The most exciting topics we'll talk about tonight. So we went out to bid for, as the board knows, we have 3 clarifiers at the wastewater treatment plant. This summer season, like during the drought, we took one out of commission and painted it. It worked out really well, the guys are really happy with it, the builder's happy with it. So we went out to bid to paint the last 2. So this is the results of the bid, and you know, we're looking forward to getting it painted. Probably not this season, we don't know if we can mobilize quick enough, but it could go into next season, get them all squared away.
Can we just ask how much did it cost to paint the first one?
Yes, the company that got it was, I believe it was SOEP, and I think it was around 40, it was in the 47 range, they were similar to what they quoted us. And Sean's behind me, he can correct me if he's there.
He's nodding, so.
He was right in that general area, I don't
Yeah,
know.
it was under $47,000.
Questions? So these are the 3 things with the,
The big round things, and it has the arm that spins around and skims them. Yeah, so they actually drain, it's very exciting when it happens. We drain the entire tank, go inside, set it up, and epoxy paint it, so.
49.
yes,
I may be not understanding this chart. The base bid is 47,000. Alt one, 4950, and then a total of 96,500. Is that,
So the base bid is for the 1 tank.
okay,
The add alternate was for tank number 2, and then the total is doing both, so we want to do both.
okay,
is tank 2 bigger?
It's in the middle, it might be more of a setup when they do the OSHA entry, I'm not sure. That would be my guess.
Any other questions?
No, just so people, this is the mechanical, this is to keep everything, this is an essential service for maintenance for folks, so this is not just a paint job, this is going on.
It's not painting the building, it's concrete power washing, epoxy painting, a lot, you know, keep it from rusting out and to preserve it so that it holds up a lot longer.
It's actually the inside of the,
It's the inside of the tank,
Right.
yes.
It's a nasty job.
It's one of the most exciting jobs, guys love it. That's one.
Critically important, that's all, I just.
okay, if there's no questions, any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all, can I have a motion?
Move that the select board award the contract to provide clarifier improvements to the Scituate wastewater treatment facility to SOEP Painting Corporation for $96,500.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion, just where did we get the money from? Was it approved at town meeting?
It was approved town meeting April 12th, 2021.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 4-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Great, the next topic is the water treatment plant project.
We brought consultants, but I'll be doing the presentation. If you have specific questions about the engineering or something like that, they can answer them. We're gonna try to just give the board an update, the community update, where we are on the water treatment plant process and what's going on. So, big date, next slide, please. Special town meeting September 19th. Article 1 is to pick the site of the water treatment plant, which this board we are recommending to be Stearns Meadow, Route 3A across from the Lutheran Church. Next slide, please. We've all seen the pictures. We know what's going on with our water. People are experiencing it, businesses are experiencing it. We've had it here at the town hall. We need to solve the groundwater problem. The issue's gotten worse this year with the manganese and the drought. The drought makes the water go down, the water warms up, the more manganese we have in the system. And it goes out through the plant. This board has made it their priority. You know that I have 3 or 4 bottles of discolored water on my desk to remind me that this is something that we need to get solved and it is your priority. And I wanna let people know that the employees down at the water department, they work very hard. They take a lot of pride in what they do. They don't wanna see a product like this going through their pipes and going out to the system. So this is our priority, and this is something that we're gonna fix. Next slide, please. So what do we do? If the board remembers, it was almost 4 years ago exactly, on August 13th, 2018, we had a groundwater meeting over at Scituate High School. We detailed the steps that were needed to take care of the groundwater issue in Scituate. 1, remove the accumulated material from water mains. That's items 1 and 2 that you see checked off. 2, remove manganese from the sources of water. That is items 3, 4, and number 5, which is the new water treatment plant. And the final one was find new sources of water, which the board is aware is the Dolan well field and the project that we are working on to expand the size of the reservoir. The water treatment plant is the next step, it is the biggest step, and is the most crucial step that we have to take care of groundwater. The board made it a priority, we created a plan, and as you can see, we are executing that plan as we go forward. I think the thing we want to emphasize to people is that the water treatment plant that we are planning on building is a 0 discharge treatment plant. Right now, we discharge water every day to the sewer treatment plant. That is water that could be used in our water system. The new plan is a priority. We are on DEP's list because of the TPHM violations that we've had in the past. The board is aware of, and then this year with the manganese violation that we had recently in the month of July. We know that there is no backup system, there is no redundancy. We have about 1 month in the winter time to make critical repairs to our infrastructure at the plant. After that, we can't run into a problem producing enough clean water for the residents. So we need to produce redundancy in the system. And as we've seen from this summer, we need to put in a water treatment plant that treats our water, including manganese. Benefits of a new water treatment plant. It will produce clean, safe water that meets all DEP and EPA requirements. Water is about the most regulated thing we do. So we need to put a plant in that will meet all those requirements. We need to put in a plant that recycles the water. We estimate that the water that we are not recycling at this point is between 14 and 20 million gallons of water that we flush away every year because we don't have a 0 discharge plant. That is water that will go back into the system. That is water that people will have for drinking, for washing their cars, for washing their boats, and much as I hate to say, for watering their lawns. We need to put redundancy in the process. The new plan will have multiple systems, so we can have a system online and take a system offline, make critical repairs, make updates, and really do routine maintenance while the rest of the plant is producing water on a regular basis. It will also allow us to meet our capacity. Our capacity, I believe, is 3 million gallons a day. We just can't do that. Our current plant can't produce that type of water. In the winter times, when we have sufficient water, we would be able to run all that water through our plant, rest our wells, take our wells offline. So those are things right now that we currently can't do given the condition of our plant. Next slide, please. So the work done to date, we finished the 3 phases of the state-required pilot program. The engineering work has been done to establish the treatment plan process. So that's the baseline, that's the science. The pilot testing drives what the plant looks like. It's based on the science. What we've done is we've pilot tested not only the water in Old Open Bucket, but also the water in the reservoir, because our plan is to have an outfall of the reservoir in the future. And then we determined the best treatment for our water. And that's what we're doing in this process. And I think that's the big takeaway. It's the science that determines what the water treatment plant looks like. And that is based on the water that we will be sending through our plan. Before we start, next one. Thank you. If the board remembers, in April of 2021, we had town meeting at the high school. We all were wearing masks with social distancing. The town voted unanimously to buy the Stearns Meadow property with the understanding that this may be a future site for our water treatment plant. Last year, we approved funding for the water treatment plant, with a caveat that the board had to come back to the town to get approval for the actual site. At the town meeting, we revisited the planning documents. We performed an analysis of all the parcels that we had available that would meet the requirements based upon the pilot program. So the plant had to be so big, have so much, to determine if any of those were a viable option. We hired a firm to help us conduct an open house. We've done surveying, we've had several community meetings, and we presented a GIS survey website and interactive tools so people can look at the different sites, the pros and cons. Based on all this, it is our recommendation to the board and to the town that the Stearns Meadow site is the best site for the water treatment plant. We are putting the water treatment plant next to the reservoir that we purchased the land to do. It's the best place for it, it's the closest place for it. Since then, we've listened to the residents, we've looked at all our options, we've made changes, we've come up with some new designs. But that is the best place based upon 13 factors in citing the water treatment plant. The biggest ones, as you see there, number 1 is the proximity to the water source. The farther away you are from your water source, the more money you will spend to pipe the water back and forth to your plant and back into the system. We estimate for every mile that we move the water treatment plant, it will cost us between $4 and $5 million more to move that water over that distance. We encourage everybody to go look at the GIS map, to answer questions about some of the properties that we have. We own this property, we've marked the wetlands, there are not significant wetlands on this property, and we know, we go to the next slide please, we know it fits. This was the original plan, this is a preliminary, what they call proof of concept plan, and this just shows that everything we need to do on the site can't fit, meeting current zoning and current setbacks. After the meetings with the residents, after the listening sessions, after all the comments that we took, after talking to the board, and I know the board's priority has been to create and keep the largest buffer possible for the water treatment plant, while still building the water treatment plant that we need. So everything is got to be pulled down and to the left, and we will continue to make sure we meet the board's directive to maximize the buffer while still creating the plant that we need. When you look at this concept plan, what I can tell you is as we continue to review the data from the pilot program, particularly the lagoons, they could be smaller as we move along. They will not get bigger, but they could get smaller as we continue to massage the data and look at what it's telling us that we need to do. So this is a conceptual plan, it's a 15% design. We have purposely not done renderings, we have not gone beyond this, because really, it's not worth spending the money to do a design of a plant for a piece of property until we know that we're not going to plant. So this is really a conceptual design, and once we get approval for the site, we will then get into the actual design of the plant, what it's actually going to look like. Next slide, please, Seth. One more after that. Here's our schedule. We believe this is a realistic schedule, although it is, according to our consultant, aggressive. We will be pushing all of these boards, committees, and the alphabet soup of state agencies to move as quickly as possible so we can move some of these dates out and get this water treatment plant built. As I mentioned in my update, we are working on some temporary measures to help in the short term with the groundwater, but the answer to our groundwater problems, the next step is to do a water treatment plant. And that is what we believe to be an aggressive and doable timetable to get the water treatment plant constructed. Next slide, please, Heather. If the town decides we do not wish to use the site at Stearns Meadow, there will be at least an 18 to 24 month delay on, we went too far.
Can you go back to, Seth?
Back to, thanks, Heather, on that schedule. And that can change depending upon where we want to put the plant. So I know the ballpark has been mentioned, the baseball field. The baseball field is Article 97 land, which is under the Constitution. It was an act of legislation to take that out of Article 97 to make it available to build the water treatment plant. That would delay it even further than the 18 to 24 months that you see. So time is of the essence, groundwater is an issue. We need to get going on building this plant and getting that taken care of. We encourage everyone to go to the town website. We have a dedicated page, frequently asked questions, the designs, the treatment process, anything you need to know about what the new water treatment plant is going to be doing and why it's going to be doing it. We've had good luck with that. There's also a link there you can sign up and get updates for the plant moving forward. Keep you informed of what's going on. We're very happy with that, getting those emails periodically. But the next key date is town meeting. The consultants are still doing the work on the raw water, on the pilot test, but for the most part, we're holding back now on the design and the next steps of the plant until we have the site nailed down and we'll get the water treatment. So the big vote for people is going to be town meeting to make that determination, and then we'll go from there on the next steps. That's a very high level where we are, but we can answer questions for the board.
Great, thanks, Jim. From the board. Board starts off.
I mean, it's clear we have to get going, and we have to get going now. There is absolutely no, it's inexcusable for us to wait 18, 24 months to allow any groundwater to go through a town-owned water treatment plant. Currently it's happening, and we move forward, a new plant is not only the most fiscally responsible thing to do, it's the most environmentally responsible thing to do, and it's gonna be able for us to provide clean, fresh water that we can be proud of moving forward. And I wanna thank all the teams here who've been working with residents, as we say, continue to look for that buffer space, but the Stearns Meadow site is the best possible site. The more and more we look into this, the clearer it becomes that this is the best site for the best money and the best value. So I want to say thank you to the team for putting this together. And the importance of this cannot go unnoticed. So, which I had to say.
Yeah, I'd like to say that Karen's confusing something. It looks to me like there's a lot more buffer, a lot more green space, which I think was one of the problems that the neighbors had. Is there any way of knowing without actually building it, how much of the building site will be visible to people? And how objectionable, well, let me ask it a different way. What were the objections that the neighbors had that you felt as though are addressed in this?
I mean, the biggest one was, at least in my opinion, was how much of the site was gonna be cleared. When you look at the plan before this, you can see much more of the site would have been cleared. The buildings would have been much closer to the homes, much less green space. We've also moved it further away from the homes, again, down to the left, pushing it. Yet we're still maintaining the required buffers on 3A, 50 foot for the buildings and 50 foot for the anything and 100 feet for the building. So we're gonna make sure we maintain that. I know people have talked about more buffering, because the closer we go to the road, the less 3A buffer there is, and the further back we go, the less buffer for the neighbors. So we're trying to meet all those. Really the closest that it is to the the neighbor's property is in this back up here, the green space, and the bottom right, and that's not actually a building, that's where, we did the septic system, so that's, will be cleared, but there won't be any building in that location. That was really, the question about noise and things like that, it's generally a very quiet plant, there won't be a lot of traffic going in and out. The lagoons are a question about that, which we answered on the website. Really, I think the biggest one coming out of the gate was, it's too close and there's too much.
Too much
space
space
down.
being used.
We will minimize that, cutting as much as possible, depending on the site, we may have to clear some more and then replant it later, get the construction in. But we have been clear, the board's instruction to us is maximize the buffer zone of the neighbors. We've made that clear to the consultants, and now we'll keep that well with them.
And one other observation is that there's been a lot of discussion about the administration building. But when people think of administration, I think they think of the people who are doing the billing and answering the phones and that sort of thing. But the truth is, there's how many employees in the administration of the water department? Is it 2?
You count Sean 3.
Okay, 3. Everyone else is working at the plant, on the plant. They're not,
There'll be the treatment and distribution people, they all work together.
Right.
So they need to be there.
so the idea of moving admin off-site gets us almost nowhere in terms of the site use.
Maybe 1,000 square feet out of the total
Yeah.
building, so it's minuscule. It really is, and then we would have to spend money on the current building, to bring that up to code, it's not handicap accessible, and has a bunch of other issues. So we have to spend additional money on the current building to bring it up to code, so really the amount of space for the administration is negligible.
And how many garage spaces are there?
2,
How many trucks are there?
6.
Right, so
Two
we're not
drive-throughs.
putting a fleet up there.
We're putting the vehicles that we use up there, we'll put the vehicles that are needed for the good water treatment plant up there, the forklift, things like that.
Thank you.
Just reiterate what Mr. Goodrich said, thank you for this update and for the work that everyone has done to make sure that there's been a dialogue with those folks that about this property. I just want to remind everyone, and I know Jim, you've done this many times, as it just says, it's 15% of the design. This gets approved in town meeting. The design function, as we move along this process, there will be plenty of opportunities for additional public input, as, you know, it's 50% design and all of that. Those specific things that Ms. Conley brought up will be opportunities in the next several years to have those conversations. I just wanted to remind people of that. Another question I had was, I'm pretty sure I remember the answer, but I just want to confirm it. The number of the approved funding, which is before we try to find some offsets from the states and feds, that also includes the demolition of the current site?
I believe it does.
Okay,
Yes.
that's, I thought so, but I want to make sure that we didn't have that problem on the road. Should this go forward?
I believe it does. Steve?
Yeah, we have no laws.
It was a while ago, so I thought.
The board will have to decide what they want to do.
That's
It
a
is
fun
limited,
conversation.
it is limited given its proximity.
Wait, just a few things I'll add. First of all, I know that the pushback has been from the neighbors and the neighbors not wanting this in their vicinity, which I completely understand. I will mention that the neighbors are, I believe, 100% in support of us needing a new water treatment. So there's no doubt whether this needs to happen or not happen. The fact of the matter is, it's already been pushed off 6 months. And by seeing the dates there, the earliest it's gonna get done is in September of 2026. So this is not a quick building process. It's gonna take years, almost 4 years to get this up and functioning. So any delay is gonna be detrimental to us getting where we wanna be, which is clean water in town. We have worked with the neighbors. If you can leave this site up, initially I think people thought that the whole area was gonna be clear cut. It's not, I would guess, and you can probably tell me the percentage, but it's probably maybe even less than 50% of the usage of the space itself. the rest of it is green. There is gonna be a 100-foot buffer before you see any buildings from the street, and that's a 30-foot line, I believe, going along the houses there, of which it's much larger than that along most of it. So we are still trying to keep the buffer as large as we can, and we can work on additional fencing, additional plantings, whatever will create that ambiance that's needed to keep that, the neighborhood the way they want it. So that is all in the rest of the design work. We have looked at other locations. The town frankly just doesn't own a lot of land to do this. And the only one that we've really talked about is trying to horseshoe it into the current location, which has many, many problems with it. A, it's not big enough to do what we want to do, and B, it would put our current water treatment plant in jeopardy of some sort of problem by trying to do construction around it. The other thing I'd like to bring up is we have other concerns too. It's not just getting rid of groundwater. We have a failing water treatment plant. Failing may be too strong, sorry, Sean, but we're having problems with it, and we have to duct tape it every year and repair this and that. It is just in need of repair, period. Groundwater or no groundwater. So that has got to be on the fast track to get it done as quickly as possible before something really bad happens there, which we've had a couple of scares over the last 2 or 3 years. Then we're in a lot of trouble, just providing any water to people. So I can't emphasize how much it's important to get this done quickly because any delay really puts our whole water system at risk. And then as I think Andrew pointed out, the saving of 20 million gallons of water a year is working towards the whole cause anyways of water conservation. So I'll open it up to the audience in a second, but I can't emphasize enough how important it is, A, to get to town meeting and vote, and B, to get this on a track to get done. We can still work on the site to make it more appeasing to the neighbors, but this thing has to get underway for both the reasons, groundwater and just the whole security of our current treatment plant. One other thing I do want to bring up, I think Sean sent an email around today that talked about, gave numbers on the complaints of groundwater complaints over the last, 3, 4, 5 years. And it's kind of interesting. We have a lot this year because of the drought situation. Last year we had very few. I think it was like single digits in some areas. And then the year before that, when we had a drought situation as well, it was higher. So, we're not water experts. We look to you guys. You guys tell us what the problem is. But it really seems clear that using water from our reservoir is a big part of the problem. And that's what happens when we're in drought situations. And that data kind of pointed towards that. So, any further comments before I open it up?
On the complaints, if you look at last July, it was the month of July when the complaint data, I think we had 31. In 2019, we were up 700. And the last year was a rainy July, so the reservoir had cold water in it. We didn't have the manganese problem. This year with the drought, the water gets warm, the manganese, I don't know the exact terms here, but the manganese comes out of solution and goes back into the plant. So we really got those complaints down until this year.
Yeah, just 2 other things. I think it's really important for people to understand that saving the water and not sending it to the wastewater treatment plant is a huge, huge benefit. And I feel as though if we make sacrifices because we have to move it to a different location and not be able to do what all the scientists are telling us we should do, that's a mistake. And I think that I thought the interactive map was very helpful. I think that it's very clear that we don't have a lot of land that the town owns, which means we'd be in a situation where we have to go out and try to negotiate with the landowner to buy land, and all of the land that I can see that is potentially we could buy is going to cost us more because it's further away. And so, I think that the town made the right decision at town meeting a couple of years ago to buy this property. And we specifically did not buy it as open space because we knew that we had very little municipal land and that it was important for us to be able to have alternatives. And the last thing I'd like to say is, the last thing I want to do is for this to be, held up again for, I think that the town has tried very hard to work with the neighbors, and I hope they'll recognize that.
Any questions or comments from the audience?
Steve York again. Just looking at the site plan quick, I'm guessing that the small circles in the bottom left-hand corner are isolated vegetated wetlands. And it seems to me that the one that is closest to the building, right there, the second one on the right, go down to the right some.
Yeah, I see it.
There you go, right there. If you can work with the Conservation Commission to relocate that small isolated vegetated wetland, you can take that whole building and probably move it down another 100 or 150 feet, which would get it further away from the residents up there. And that's probably a possibility to do that. There's plenty of room to relocate that wetland. And I would start preliminary conversations with them, because I think that can change the design dramatically and probably be better for the neighbors.
I see Steve nodding, so I think he's,
Yeah, once we have the site.
Yeah.
We're gonna get some design.
Yeah, it's the first time I've seen the plans like this.
So you're running the track, so you're like in Concom, engagement conversation.
any other questions or comments?
Quick question,
Yes, sir.
Tom Danko, Bridle Lane. So it sounds like you've interacted with various engineers to, evaluate the site that you'd like to use. And, they've given you an opinion that the existing site is not viable for X, Y, Z reasons, right? Have we gone out to bid or engaged an alternative engineering firm who might reevaluate site A? There's a little bit of competition and some guy says, I can't put a man on the moon, and the next guy can't put that on the moon. You seem to generate, ingenuity. So are we talking alternative engineering organizations?
I would have to say no, in terms of trying to pit engineering firms against each other. But I know that the one that we hired has looked at every site possible with an open mind to see if there's really the ability to do it. I mean, our task to them was to come back to us with options so that we could look at them. And that really wasn't even an option. You can't put the lagoons there and you jeopardize the running of the current one. So we didn't do, I think, what you're suggesting.
Just look at the automotive industry, okay? It's been gas driven for decades, right? Tesla comes along, it goes electric, and now suddenly every automotive manufacturer is trying to figure out how to get in that game. If Tesla didn't, drive that innovation, then the rest of these people may never have come along. I'm simply saying that there's an alternative engineering position. They might reevaluate site A, which is the existing plant, come up with a different approach that might make it viable. I don't think there's any need for a sales pitch insofar as whether or not the community wants a water treatment plant. So all the meetings will really emphasize that. It's not necessary, everybody's on board. What they're trying to do is just get towards that conservation of that greenway, right? And so they like this idea. One of the charts said, we're gonna have a vote on site selection and so forth, right? But there doesn't seem to be an alternative site that's been proposed. So what is that vote? So we're just trying to drive innovation.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and it's a great idea theoretically, but we didn't do it, and I don't know that we have time to do it now. And I just want to make one comment. We talk about saving the green space on 3A. That space right there was going to be like 10 condos. So there's plans that have that cleared with, I can't remember the number, but somewhere around that number of I'm sorry?
18.
18, thank you. And, that is part of our initiative here, is to keep that as green as we possibly can. So, yes, Karen.
I just want to add one piece to that. I completely get where you're coming from, and then we obviously all want the very best product. As the town administrator in his presentation said, we have to create a plant that cleans our water. And you're right, if we asked another engineer, maybe they have a different idea, but we have top-notch engineers looking at our specific problem as it were. And Mr. Vignani is right that, the margin of maybe improvement would cost us so much time and money and delay that that in this particular instance, I think that we've done a really good job vetting the right system and with the right partners. That helps.
So also needs to be understood too, that this was not the original plan, that there was an entirely different type of process. Called a DAF system. It was an air filtration system, and it did not work. And I don't want to, I know there's rules on what you can disclose during the selection process, but we did, when I was on the selection process for all these different firms, I think we sat through 8 different presentations, there was many discussions about what sort of types of plans was going to be able to work. And some of the firms were pretty clear that, guess what, that ball field is not big enough. Like, this is clear for what we're going to be able to do and not do. So I think there was more discussion than just this is the one type of a plan. And again, multiple engineering firms have looked at this. And we've been thankful to actually do the work to go through and say, this one didn't work, this one does work, this is our only spot. Now what? I mean, now we gotta move forward.
Good point. Kevin, did you have something?
I was just gonna add, we have 2 engineering firms involved, we have Time Bond involved as well as who we current. And it was a third-party company that did the pilot study. And that's what the evaluation was, to prove that the DAF system would not work.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
My name is Jerry Kelly. I live at 56 Moreland Road. I was at the spring town meeting where we discussed this. And much to my amazement, the neighbors had not been engaged to that point. And we had a very long and spirited conversation. I want to understand what has been the extent of the outreach to the abutters, and, are the abutters going to be supportive of this?
I can't answer the second one, but I know that there's been at least 3 or 4 meetings with all of the abutters and kind of a mediating, I can't remember what her name was, but who facilitated conversation, feedback, answering questions, providing information on websites. Am I missing a meeting? Is it 3 or 4 of them, I believe?
There's one specific meeting just with the abutters.
Yeah.
And
So-
several other meetings.
The moderator did a very good job writing all the questions down and then responding with the questions on the website after the fact. Whether the abutters will support it or not, I do not know. You made a good point, Jerry. When we went to town meeting, we only had the proof of concept pitch. It was very, very early in the process. And it wasn't one that was really designed to appease the people that lived around it. It was, can we get all these buildings on this piece of property? Is it capable of doing it? And I think we made a lot of progress since then. And there's still, it's only 15% done, so there's, as Steve brought up, if we can move it 100 more feet to the left, I think it'll make people happier again. Yeah.
One question for Sean. Sean, how many other water plants in the state have mustard gas on their property?
I don't know the answer to that.
Few.
Very few.
Very few.
That every plant that's had an opportunity to get rid of the mustard gas has gotten rid of it.
I don't know if I use the term.
Well, chlorine. You get chlorine gas, which is a high risk.
Okay. Any other? All right, great. Thank you guys for the update. Again, the town meeting is on the 19th, and this will be one of the big topics of discussion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys. The next topic of thanks. We've got some interviews from board and committees and applicants and so forth. So the first one that we have is for the Scituate Beach Commission. Is Kate here? I'm here. Kate? How are you?
I'm very well, how are you?
So,
Good evening.
Before you get started,
Sure.
so we have a lot of interviews tonight, we'll call them. So we're gonna try and do them, not quickly, but quickly. Judiciously, good word. So here's what we're gonna ask you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us why you wanna do this. And if you have any special interest, or is there something specific that you see that needs improvement? Those are the things that we wanna know. A little bit about your background. Again, you're interested in it, and is there some specific issue right now that kind of piques your interest? And that's not just you.
Okay.
But start us off, Kate.
Yeah, no problem. So, thank you for seeing me this evening. Appreciate your time. My name is Kate Dahlstrom. I live up on Garrison Drive in Scituate. I've lived here approximately 6 years with my husband and 2 children. And really am, am a scientist actually by trade. I have a degree in biology and currently am working in clinical trials overseeing cancer research at a biotechnology company in Cambridge. Really, I guess to answer your question about why I am interested in getting involved, I have sort of this intrinsic desire, I suppose, to get involved, just generally, and I've reflected a bit on why that is. I think a lot of my family members have participated in town service, police, fire, education, court system, DA's office, and as I just mentioned, I obviously went a different direction, but still have this sort of desire to involve myself in my community. I feel like that's part of my responsibility for participating in a community. So I actually started volunteering for the Scituate Food Pantry. It turns out their hours aren't as conducive to my clinical research job. So funny enough, my husband has actually taken over that role from me in supporting the food pantry. And so I've been reflecting on how I can add value, basically. And I think ultimately there's 3 main ways that I can be of service, if you will. I have significant project management skills, obviously stemming from my career. I manage multi-million-dollar budgets and cancer clinical trials, so happy to sort of lend services where needed to troubleshoot and solve problems. I also grew up on the water, and that combined with my science background gives me some real interest in ocean preservation, ecosystem stability, things of that nature, so the Beach Commission felt like the right fit. But I guess maybe most importantly is we use the beaches. We are constantly on the beach all seasons, not just summer. My family takes walks on the beach in the winter time. My kids' favorite pastime is throwing rocks in the water, to which there are plenty here. And really that's a big reason why we moved here. I think it's one of Scituate's biggest assets. And so I'd like to be a part of making sure that it's taken care of and making sure that the community has access. I don't really have any significant issues. For me, I think a big part of living in Scituate is the ability to access the beaches, and it's a big part of why I actually physically moved to Scituate and not Hingham or somewhere else. It's a big, as I mentioned, I think a really big asset to Scituate, and I'd like to see the community be able to use those beaches in a usable way, so that we're not sort of extending out into sort of public beach territory. I think it's really nice to have, a residential setup.
Great, thanks. Questions?
You can go first.
Just one question is, have you had an opportunity to meet with anyone that's currently serving or to look at any of the work that's been done?
So I haven't met with anyone on the beach commission. I did, I have looked at some past minutes. I think the most recent was May, posted on the website, but I did go back and take a look at some of the topics of conversation. I actually watched your meeting about the Minot stairs as well, but I haven't spoken to anyone directly.
Yeah, it's a great commission. It's really gotten my legs under it in the last 6 months or so.
What do you think of the stairs?
I'm happy you said yes.
All 4?
Yes, I mean, you're there.
Karen?
Yeah, if you could pick one priority, what would it be for all beaches? Not just one beach, but all beaches.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be a really simple comment, but, the beach cleanups, I think, are important. My husband and I are, you'll see us, we're kind of those crazy people sitting with our kids, like picking up other people's trash, and so it's just that our nature, and so I think that's, you know, sort of talking about the best solutions to that, right? There's carry in, carry out, there's also availability of trash barrels, I mean, there's a lot of different methods, but I think that for me is a priority, not just because of sitting down at the beach, you don't wanna be, you know, sitting next to glass bottles, but also, again, ocean preservation. I can't tell you the amount of things to found in the water,
We know.
I heard the arm earlier with the cleaning, it's impressive.
I was just gonna say that one of the things that we've been asking the beach commission to do is to do 5-year plans for each of the beaches. Not anything long, but a 1-page summary of the issues by beach, because they're different.
Yeah.
And, you know, what would you, the beach commission, recommend that we do for each beach over the course of the next 5 years? So it sounds like you've got the right organizational skills to help out with the project.
Indeed, I'm working on a 5-year plan for my department right now.
We love 5-year plans.
It's actually more of a 3-year plan, but we'll get there.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
I just have to, you get these resumes and you realize the life and professionalism of stewardship that you've done not as a professional in, but from oncology work, rare disease genetic, I mean, you're gonna give service back to Scituate, it's just thank you
Thank
for
you.
stepping forward and
Sure.
being able to be part of it.
Thank you.
So I'll give there's, it's a 3-year term, there's one opening, and there's one other applicant who is requesting other committees as well, so.
Great.
Thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
And we will either vote tonight or next meeting, and Lorraine will get in touch with you and.
Appreciate it.
Right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
The next one that we're gonna do is waterways. Are all 3 of you guys here? Brian, and TJ? Yes. You guys wanna all come up? You guys?
Good evening.
So you guys are, actually, what numbers?
24.
Statistics. So there are two full member openings, 2 renewals. What am I doing? That's correct. Is that right? That is correct. Okay, but all of you guys are renewing. Renewal? Oh,
Associate,
associate.
going for full.
Great. Okay. So, obviously you guys have been there. Tell us a little about yourselves, what you want to do, why you want to stay on it. What's that one issue that is you want to change in the next 3 years?
Thank you very much. So I've been a resident of Scituate, homeowner since '81, boaters for the past 35 years, 10 in Cole, Cole Parkway Marina, 25 at the Yacht Club. 4 years ago, when I became chairman of the waterways, one of the goals was for us, the waterways, and also the boating community to have a better understanding of the financials of the waterways enterprise fund. Prior to that, we really kind of didn't have much in-depth knowledge. So one of my goals as chairman was to work closely with Nancy to develop a better relationship so we understood not only the finance, but work better with the harbor master and supporting the capital projects that were so needed. In those 5 years, we were able to finance through various methods of either using retained earnings, debt service, or grants, which were fantastic, approximately $2 million worth of projects. Currently, our debt service is pretty high. It's about $400,000. And for the next, so fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24, it will be about $340,000. We have a very large project that there's a warrant on the upcoming town meeting for approximately $1.25 million to build it to borrow that. We've got a grant from Scituate for $1 million, so the total project will be somewhere in the vicinity of $2 million. It's really incumbent upon us to be able to not only understand how to best finance this by working closely with Nancy, but minimize the impact to the current debt structure by using such levers such as short-term financing, which Nancy and I have talked about before we flip it over to long-term debt. So fiscal year 25, our debt will drop greatly, down approximately $250,000. If we had to finance the entire package, it would be about $140,000. We've got 3 or 4 other items that are significant dredging projects in the South River, zones B and C, as well as finally we're going to be able to do something in Scituate Harbor. We're in the first stage on both the permitting and engineering on that. However, it's going to be rather significant because of the new regulations, probably in the vicinity of $100,000 in the South River and significantly higher in the north, rather in the harbor. So again, we've got to manage and stick handle this. And without being a pain in the neck to Nancy, we're trying to do this so we can educate the voting community, and hopefully the long-term goal is to minimize any kind of rate impacts to the community. So that's been my charter was as chairman, and then when I stepped down 2 years ago, remaining on the waterways, the current chairman asked me to run the finance, and I've been doing that now for 4 years, working closely with Nancy. So to get over the hump for the next 2 years before our debt service drops dramatically, I was looking to renew. However, there's a great stable of people behind us that are ready, willing, and able to jump in and assist in any way. So whatever the board feels is best, I fully support that.
Great. And this is Brian Kelly.
I'm sorry, Brian Kelly, 16.
And you were chair for 2 years?
I was chairman for 2 years, correct.
Great. So I'm going to take from that your kind of goal and your thing you're looking into is to keep the finances on track for the next 5 years. Great. Awesome.
Brian Cronin,
Brian.
also a past chair on waterways. Because I've been going to waterways meetings since 2008. I was an associate member, was on, was chairman, and then got off. So in the past, I've been floating down the South River my whole life. One of the important things is that there should be somebody who votes in the South River or the North River, the South River on the board. Everybody's kind of based in the harbor right now, and I think bringing up issues in the South, in either river is important. So past chair, past waterways member, the college I worked in the harbor master's office, and then I did 10 years working in the marine industry, so that's sort of past experience. I think one of the important issues we started this year was having kayak racks, so increasing public access. I think we should look to increase that program so more people have access to the harbor and the rivers. I think that's very important. And in addition to keeping the marina project moving forward, the updated Cole Park Road is a great project.
And just for disclosure, what do you do now for work?
Project management, so outside of the
Okay.
And I'm retired.
Great, so there's just been discussions in the past where, I want a fishing fleet, right? We just want to.
Good evening, thanks for having me here. My name is TJ Melvesky, a current associate member on waterways, and had a great year working with Mike, the board, and Stephen. Learned a lot about processes and looking forward to reaching fill one of the full-time roles, or the full member roles. My background, I spent 30 years in the Coast Guard. I retired last year. I was the commanding officer at Coast Guard Station Point Allerton and Coast Guard Station Scituate. And we were happy kind of in the last few months there to be able to save Scituate, Station Scituate, at least for the next 5 to 10 years until that comes around again. So in the Coast Guard, I've done everything from run large projects, run crews, environmental protection, work with harbor masters, state police. So I really have a solid background in networking and working outside. of my remit to try to draw in resources. Very familiar with grants, budgets, and the reason why I want to be on the board, first of all, I have 2 school-age kids who are in community sailing, who go with me, I boat down at the marina at Cole Parkway. And outside of keeping and helping make Scituate a world-class boating destination to help our economy, just put us on the map. You know, I'm really committed to helping out the marina project any way I can, but also sustainability-wise for my kids, their kids, and the locals here in town. Strong commitment to making sure that we're being financially responsible with our budget, and making sure that we've got a world-class board to support our community long-term. Looking forward to bringing some energy to the committee and hopefully some fresh ideas as Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. You want to start us off here?
No, I'm good, I'm impressed. Yeah, I know, it's such a wonderful thing to have all these great people helping out with the town. The only question is in camp, is it, so Brian, are an associate member now, or?
I'm an associate member.
Brian T here, associate.
Oh, I'm just looking at our notes, and so you're a full member.
No, I'm a full member.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm just trying to understand.
There's 2
our
Brians,
positions.
So I've been on, and I'm went back on as an associate, so I'm looking to get back on as a full.
Oh, okay, that's where I was confused. How were you chair as an associate? Okay, sorry, my confusion. No, thank you all for wanting to continue to have. Did you see the letter we got today? Can I get? Come on, don't roll your eyes. They need to see this.
Andrew?
No, I was gonna ask this later.
That was signed by the chair of the Seaport Committee.
It'll be correspondence later, but we did receive an additional grant towards the dredging project, so that work is supported by this committee and with the possible value, so thank you.
Great. I do have a question for you. So, as I completely butchered when we started this, there are 2 openings for full-time slots. Is really what we're doing. Brian's and then Rick Murray is also up for renewal this year. Then we've got 2 associate members that are up as well that would like to go to those full-time slots. And then we also had somebody else, Kevin Norton, come in before us last week that wanted to join it as well. My question to you is, what do you think the representation is for the commercial fishing industry? And do we need more of it on the committee? At first, at the last meeting, I didn't think anyone was on it. And then I think I've been told, corrected me, that one of the current members is a commercial fisherman. Is that right?
Yeah.
So what is your, and Brian, I'll start with you.
So just to further confuse you, there's actually 4 openings, including 2 renewals. So Dave Friedman left, Craig Rosen left, and Rick Murray and I are up for renewals.
There's 2 renewals, the 2 openings for the 2 people that resigned.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
So now you're really confused,
Yeah,
right?
no, now I actually understand it.
Oh,
So there's 2 openings.
Correct.
Openings, there's 2 renewals, there's 2 associate members, and there's 1 person that wants to join.
There's actually 3 associate members that would like to be moved up to full members. And Dave Deneen couldn't be here tonight. TJ and Brian are both associate members that would like to be moved up to full members.
Great, so all of them.
Dave Deneen and Rick Murray are
Steve
coming
Gardner.
to the next meeting. Kevin Norton came to the last meeting. Kevin Norton is a new applicant that you interviewed at the last meeting.
Got it. So, someone tell me about commercial fishermen, and we need more representation on the board for that. I'll start with you.
sure. So we've had 2. Tucker was on prior to this. And they certainly add a lot of value. I fully support the commercial fishermen representation. And there's times when David can't make it, that hopefully Kevin could, because of obviously if they're out fishing and they just can't make it back, that's obviously much more important. But they bring a different viewpoint than obviously us recreational boaters. And we whether during Brian's tenure or my tenure as chairman, we certainly welcomed and solicited their input on the commercial side. So
I'm gonna be a little, do we have enough representation from commercial fishermen on there? If there's one out of however many, 7 or 8, 9, do we need more of that now, or do you think are they being heard, and are we hearing all of the issues with the commercial fishermen?
I think Dave represents the fishing community pretty well. I mean, more is better. I think it's always valuable if someone joins as an associate member, so they learn kind of the way meetings run, the whole process, and then they get to hear about the issues. And I mean, anybody can come to the meeting. There are fishermen who go to the meetings who don't want to be members, but they still go and speak. So I think, there's people there are fishermen who go just about every meeting.
Well, good.
And shellfish is always a hot topic, and we've got a lot of input there with what's going on with the flats and whatnot. And I do think it's instrumental to have that representation because we are a working harbor as part of our heritage here at Scituate, and we need to continue to make sure that is represented in the board. But I didn't see an area where we needed to add more. I think the balance is
great.
It's pretty good.
yes, anybody who has spent any time with Dave Dossman knows he's not afraid to share his opinion, and he's very, very frequent contributor and attendee to our meetings.
All right, thank you all for coming in. If not, another question. So we aren't gonna vote tonight because we have 2 interviews next week, and then at that point, we'll have spoken to everybody.
Fantastic.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So conservation is next.
Thank you very much, Lauren.
Andrew and Greg and Penny,
I see ya.
you guys wanna all come up?
Where Andrew lives.
Comes later, we'll talk then. So Greg and Penny, how are you guys? Number 12. All right, so I'll let you guys start. Penny, you wanna start us off and say why you wanna continue doing this? And if you have a, is there this project or something you wanna see to happen over the next 3 years?
Yes, I have numerous projects in the works still. First and foremost, I want to state, I have lived in this town since 1950. I'm very proud of that. 72 years. We moved here from Hingham. My parents thought this was a wonderful place after World War II to settle. And it has been. So I have seen all the changes from 1950 on up to today. Some are good, some aren't so good, but it's a wonderful, wonderful town. That being said, yes, I have been on Concom for 15 years. I'm the resident gopher, the resident nudger of getting projects done. I can list what I've done if you want to, starting with, I reciprocated the saving of the vernal pool out back. I started to teach German. I got Sustainable Scituate involved. That was Penny's brainstorm, but I didn't know what to do. So I grabbed Sustainable Scituate, and we got a wonderful farm up there. Hunter's Pond, Jason and I were the ones that got that going again, and then Al took it over, but Jason Burton and I were the ones that got the original grant to get that started and got the state involved, and then Al, which was right, took it over and we got rid of that. I had the brilliant idea, Tony, that I wanted to clean Hunter's Pond and put it back to where it was when I was a child. And we stayed there every year, but it had grown in, and Jason said, no, Penny, the state wants the DM up. And I said, oh, I guess I gotta switch around my idea. So I worked with Jason to get that going. And from there, we got, Frank and I were very hard involved with properties up the West End and the roads and the access we have in there now. We're finishing up. The last one is the Damon property that we ran out of funds, and we're finishing that up. And I've been very active with Wildlands Trust, getting the CRs done, They're in a bottleneck right now up at the state, sad to say, it's been 2 years, but they haven't hired another reviewer. But thankfully, when they do, all of our CRs are right at the top of the big pile that they have. And this is statewide, nobody's getting the CRs done at the moment. At the moment, I'm hip hooray, Mordecai Lincoln, which I took a bunch of select people out in different groups out, Doug Smith and I jumped on that one when it came about, and I'm looking forward, that's my next real project that I have on my agenda, is to do the path around the outskirts, go to CPC, get some funding to put some picnic tables in the field, and Rec would like to see a dock for kayakers out there. And that's something I would like to work with the Rec department to get that going, because that's a beautiful place to launch a boat and kayak. So that's, and I do have, Sean has been working on the RFP for me for the 2 bridges down at Driftway, down Driftway, the MBTA burn. And so those are the ones that are right at the moment. And the thing is, to be honest, yes, I've been on a long time. I have the time. The rest of the board, they're wonderful, we have a wonderful board, but they have families, they have jobs. Somebody has to do all the stuff, somebody's gotta run around, somebody's gotta, get the call in, okay, I'll get that for you, but today Scott and Carl called me, Penny, I need this, I need that. I said, I will have it to you by the end of the week, Scott. And, that's one of my biggest assets. Well, the biggest is I love this town. Absolutely love it.
I'm gonna let you talk again, okay? I'm gonna let Greg talk for a second. You have the hardest thing to follow, right?
I got nothing at this point, yeah, I know.
She is a solid goal, right? Like she said, cares about this town more than anybody and has been involved in 200 projects, over our last 2 years. So, and I'll open it up for questions in a second.
Sure.
So, Greg, tell us why you want to do this and tell us a little bit about you. We know Penn.
Greg Fleming, I live on Turner Road. My wife and son and I moved to Scituate in 2019. We've been in New Jersey for 15 plus years. Once we had a kid, we decided we wanted 3 babysitters and the grandparents both would be there.
Smart.
When I was in Jersey, I've been an attorney since 2006. I was a prosecutor for over 10 years. Very long public service. More settled when I came up here and get back involved in serving the community, get involved in public service, and I'm at a real estate litigation firm now, and it seemed like a natural fit of things that I do with work that could translate to Conservation Commission that be able to contribute. It's not a committee that I can just sit on and nod my head, and I be able to actually participate and contribute and bring a different perspective when it's needed to the committee, how to approach certain things just from a legal perspective. It's a very experienced committee. I sat on the committee last night. It was very well run and very experienced. And I was very appreciative that everyone seen that they had done their homework. That it's not a committee where a couple of people are doing the work and no one else. It's not everyone's seen that they were engaged. And that's a nice thing to see because things can get accomplished. Things are well run, things move, and the public has a better sense of what actually is going on. Plan accordingly if things are well run and consistent. That seems that Conservation Commission right now, that's how it's done. That's very exciting to me because the most valuable thing for any of us is our time, and the last thing any of us want to do is waste our time. It seems like that would be a good use of my time, given the opportunity.
Is there any issue that you've seen that really interests you right now that you're like, I want to get involved with that because Mordecai Lincoln or whatever?
Frankly, not that in that aspect, no, any particular project that I'm trying to get involved in, not that I wouldn't, but I just don't know any offhand. So Penny knows them all and.
Have lunch with Penny.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sure I'll be on a couple of, after appetizers items were served, so. I think it's just important to, just be consistent for the public. Obviously, we serve the public and just, obviously, property is unique just by its nature. While some issues are consistent, each property is unique and each one deserves that it gets a full look at. And obviously, well, some issues can be the same, different properties might end up with different results. But it's just important to be consistent on the application of the bylaws and statutes so that there are consistent results, so the public just has a sense of what to expect from the commission.
Up to, if you want to start, or?
So just right, I was looking at your application, you're also interested in zoning, conservation, and maybe CPC as well, and those are kind of your skill sets as an attorney, so just kind of giving back to the community at large seems to be kind of an impetus. Am I right, I mean,
correct,
kind of your skill set would be most useful.
Right, and again, as people, everyone's sitting here tonight, I'm not here to waste anyone else's time. I don't want to be on a board or commission where I'm not bringing anything and everyone just kind of rolls their eyes and something gets across my, plate. I want to be able to be a productive member of that committee, so.
No eye rolling here. I used to get in trouble in high school for rolling my eyes. I did notice that you are interested in the zoning board of appeals. In fact, that was your number one. You had to rank them, so number one. Lorraine, I don't think there are any openings on zoning this year.
There are, but there will be 3 terms expiring in 2023, which.
Yeah, that's a tough board. They make difficult decisions.
And I don't think they have an attorney on that board currently.
And we need expertise. Unfortunately, there are no openings, so
Right now.
that will factor in, but if there are 3 openings up next year, and we're gonna have a hard choice on conservation. So my question for you would be, would you be willing to wait a year? And because it's nice to have people in the wings for some of these more technical things.
Obviously, I'm willing to serve my community. Whatever the committee thinks is sort of the board thinks is best.
Well, I really appreciate you coming forward, you being new here, it's nice to see new people coming in and, offering to help someone out, so thank you for volunteering. Karen?
Yeah, I will, thank you for coming forward, it's always hard when we have all these great folks that show up, but we'll find some. There's plenty of workarounds, so thank you so much for coming and introducing yourself to us, and, are we doing this committee tonight?
If Andrew doesn't come in, probably not.
Oh, right. There's one more, but, yeah.
So, do you have experience specifically in conservation? I mean, do you run into that in your practice?
We do.
Yeah.
I run to a bunch on the Cape, mostly in the Cape actually. A lot of we have clients who have beach rights and beach access, and conservation is very, especially with the lakes down on the Cape, is very involved, and what can cannot be done, we're heavily involved in that concept.
I always find that, I think that's one of the toughest commitments, frankly, because there's so many details in the bylaws and just the laws that you have to follow, and it's, as Penny knows, it's a lot to know, so having a leg up on that is a big advantage. So, that's all I have for questions, so if Andrew comes,
Is it possible to make a comment?
Yeah.
Against Steve Yorkland. Right now, the present members that are on some of these boards, their terms have actually expired, and they may not be able to vote. So if there's a way you can do some of this without waiting an additional week, it may help some of these committees. If you could vote a member on and wait on another member or something, but I know right now conservation is shy, I think, 2 voting members.
Well, I think your term goes until you're replaced, so.
I think it's a 3-year term, that's it.
No.
No.
No, it's a 3-year term or until you're replaced. So I think Penny can still vote. We'll check into that.
No, but
When we say it, we
when we
say.
say or until 3 years, or until a successor is named.
Yeah.
That's the term.
Correct, Jen? Yes, thank you.
Lorraine, that's,
That's correct.
Double credit.
so again, going through this, there's two people who are on the committee who are up for renewal. Penny and Andrew, both want to re-up. And then we have, it looks like a couple of applicants, but they put their names on other things as well, as you did. One went through and then one we put on a different committee. Is that right? Okay.
Well, Patrick Canning is still interested.
Still interested, okay.
He was put on Sisters to be Grants on July 26th.
Right, so there's 3 other people that are looking for the slot as well. And as Penny mentioned, she's been on the committee for 15 years, which is a plus and a minus, right? We like to have new people come in and do it, but we also want to keep the experience of who has done it, so, which is contradicting comments, but, so that's what we'll have to do. Great, thank you both. Any last things, Penny? I know I cut you off a little bit there.
No, that's okay. I am going to go outside and call in and see if he's coming, and I'll let you know.
I'll tell you what, if he hasn't left yet, tell him to come next week.
Yeah.
In this case with Penny, we're not just replacing her on the Conservation Commission, should we not reappoint her. We are essentially replacing her on CPC. She's been a really valued member, and I just want to particularly note the fact that when I was the chair, the new chair, and I didn't know what I was doing, the fact that we did not get conservation restrictions on almost all the properties we had bought put us in jeopardy. And Penny's been dogging that for the past 7 or 8 years and getting us to the point where we now have Wildlands Trust as the holder of the conservation restrictions should it all go through. And that we're up to date with the state, now we're just waiting for the state. So her contributions on CPC is also extremely valuable. I want to remind the board that it's 2 positions.
It's fun, I like spending money. I know, I'm looking at him.
I love you, Penny. We've knocked heads a couple times.
We have a love-hate relationship.
Great, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions for us?
No, thank you.
All right, is Christine here?
I am.
Hi, Christine.
Hi.
Cultural Council,
Yes.
number 31.
21.
Hi, please here, Karen.
Oh, Citrus Culture, I didn't, Citrus Park Culture, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So this is your number 1 choice.
It is.
Excuse me, Tony, if I could just add, and I've talked to Christine about this work. She's interested, she was applied for 3 spots, Cultural Council, Sustainable South Shore, and Conservation Commission as her 3rd choice. But we really need somebody on Cultural Council and Sustainable South Shore. And she's willing to do that, because we don't have representatives step down that was on Sustainable South Shore. I just wanted to let the board know that.
Great.
Thanks, Maureen.
Yes.
Well, hello. My name is Christine Becker. My husband, who's here, we moved to Scituate 6 months ago, and we came to town hall our 2nd week to figure out how we could be involved. So my background is in public policy. We moved from Atlanta 2 years ago to Boston, and I served as the co-chair for the Mayor's Food Access Agenda for the Boston Connections Council. And graduated the Harvard's Public Leadership Credential, which has helped a lot as a nonprofit consultant. So I work with clients who need help diversifying their fundraising strategy. We're interested in like logic modeling, evaluative design. So the reason I left that magazine is I also write for Edible South Shore. So my 2nd week here, I met Joby and the ladies and just thought, wow, these guys are doing something super special and I want to write a piece about them. So that is in there. So in case you haven't read it, it's a little biased, think it's a great article, but it's produced a lot of feedback in the South Shore and drumming up business for him. So But I'm interested, you know, in terms of a cultural, perspective, I mean, we've been really fortunate to travel a lot. We've been to 45 countries, I speak different languages, I play the violin, I could go down the list. Culture is really important. And Scituate is home, so I want to make sure that I can partake in that. When I looked at the website, it looks like there's a lot of grant approvals and dissemination, which is something I'm super familiar with. I was a part of Mayor Wu's committee in the Boston Equity Grant Committee, so those who were in the city who needed funding. Yeah, maybe I'll stop and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, is there any specific thing that you've seen that you really want to get involved in?
I mean, I'm still so new. I mean, I've met so many people in the town and it's lovely. I don't know enough about what the actual need is. I know what my skill set is and my strengths, so I feel like I could bring that to the table certainly.
Great. Who wants to start? You wanna start maybe?
Just chewing on the having a new perspective in culture. I love that. So I mean, you said you've been talking to folks down the Laney's and that ourselves really started later, but I mean, what else have you seen just around town? So wow, this really exciting.
I mean, I'll tell you something that's really fun is we've had a lot of out of town guests already, and everyone, I call it our hallmark town, just nestled by the sea. The community seems really tight knit, so being able to meet all the shop owners. I think Karen, you actually were leaving as I was talking to Nancy and Gail. And Joy, you should have been there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we're boaters, we're into sailing, so there's still a lot that we're learning. I mean, I would be dishonest if I said I have all these ideas. I'm not sure what the need is yet, but I know what skills I can bring. It's home, this is home.
Fabulous to have you here, not even broken in a year yet, willing to help the community. That's, I think you've got to the journal, why it's a great place to work, so thank you for doing that. I've written all these notes with things to follow up with you, so.
Great.
I'm gonna cut you off, right? There's 11 openings. She's talented, a slam dunk. I think,
Especially for grant making.
Yeah.
We have so many projects in town that could use your pen and eye and expertise, so thank you.
Sure.
and then you are also interested, as Lorraine mentioned, in the sustainable South Shore
Yes,
role as well.
yes,
I
Lorraine,
don't know a ton about that.
Lorraine, is that Judy?
Yes.
Okay, I've talked to Judy. Is it an appointed role?
It's appointed by the select board.
Okay.
Sustainable South Shore is a very small group of South Shore communities that work on sustainable projects.
Yeah.
And Lisa Scanlon has been the person that's been representing us. During the last couple of years with COVID, they haven't really been active. But I did have Christine reach out to Judy to see if she was interested, who runs, and how was that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is really just in full transparency. So I've done a lot of food policy work. I'm really interested in like regenerative farming, composting, just sourcing local food. I think Judy is really interested in solar panels, like just like different type of like renewable energy, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to bring more of the agricultural piece, but I don't know if Judy's interested in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Judy makes that call either.
I think it's a whole board.
Okay. So just putting that out there, I would love to be a part of it. I'd probably like to bring a different perspective. So I've been working a lot with the Scituate Farmers Market pro bono to try and help understand where's the demand, where's the disconnect. There's a lot of amazing products that could be offered, but I won't go too much in detail with that, but there's a lot of potential. It's a great community.
Lorraine, is that a one-year term, the sustainable South Shore?
Is that what it says on there? I didn't,
I don't see it on there.
yeah. I think it's a 3-year term that Lisa had, I believe. My memory serves me right.
So yes, you're interested in both, or no, you're not quite as interested in that?
I'm very interested in the cultural council, that's easy for me. I'm interested in sustainable South Shore if I know that I can really pursue the ag piece.
That's really my question. Do you have some background in like food waste management?
Oh, yeah, a lot. Well, not food, so I'm a vermicomposter, which means I have a large worm farm. And I work with worm farmers on composting. I'm super familiar with food rescue. So I've done a lot with food rescue. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like a lot of my research at Harvard was all around, you know, again, food rescue, how to minimize that, how to reallocate resources to those who are food insecure. But in terms of like composting, it's only
Because they're the ones, that's right, they're like at the transfer station, they're helping make sure they're not going this way, not going that way, and I remember there was some component at some point, hey, when could there be
yeah.
a food compost for your food waste? But if
It
not,
would be-
that's fine.
It would be awesome if we could have that, but that would be something I'd be interested in exploring. Solar panels, I know it's important, but that doesn't really get me super excited.
Okay, so I'm gonna say no. I'll just say, well, no, you tell me, I'm trying to read, you say yes or no.
I think I wanna be able to make sure that I can pursue something that's not gonna be restricted to solar energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I don't know who has the ultimate authority in that, giving me that response.
You said enough.
Okay,
Well, it sounds like get your feet wet with the cultural stuff.
Sure.
Get what's going on, and then come back for more.
okay, that sounds good.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks for coming.
Great, yeah, thanks for having me, thanks for writing.
You're
welcome. Thanks.
I guess you can say happy new year for a few months, and we can say welcome
Okay.
for another few months.
Okay, thanks.
This is Joe here. Hi, Joe. Coastal Advisory Commission. Third. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to do this.
Yeah, I live in Atlanta. I bought my first house in Scituate in '82. And, let's see what else. So we have all my information.
Yeah. So why do you want to do this?
Well, you know, I haven't been a geology major. I have an interest. And I also feel like that interest has never stopped. But I think as far as something to help community, the awareness to conservation, the erosion that's happening, climate awareness and what's happening to our shoreline, what will happen to our shoreline. And I also think about natural ways that we could protect our coastline. You know, whether it be berms or, I don't know, there's so many different places, but just look at the ways of naturally protecting what we have. And making the community aware of what our erosion is like and what climate change is not going away.
That's what we want that group to do, great. And you're from California, is that right?
No, I lived there for 10 years, but I kept my house in Scituate. Came back in the summers.
Great. Any questions? Okay.
One question, more for Lorraine, so we try on this commission, I will say I've known Joan for a long time, and her commitment when she decides to do something is quite significant. So she'd be a great asset to any board we put her on. This commission, we try to balance it, so there's some people that live inland, some that, different parts of the community represented. I know there's one opening, but is it specific to an area, Lorraine? That needs, or?
It's not specific to it.
Okay, so we have 2 coastal and 3 inland right now.
That's just a point of information. Mr. Chair. Reviewed any of the documents that are on the Coastal Advisory Commission website?
It's just mind-boggling.
Yes, I guess that's my
It's just
point.
like Pandora's box, and I look at them and think, wait a second, one committee, there must be so many subcommittees, and it's just very encompassing, it's amazing.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of information, much
Because
of
you're
which
kind of
is
dealing with the harbor, you're dealing with beaches, you're dealing with
being, dealing with all the needs that we have.
Yes, when I looked at it, I can't believe this is so.
All right, thank you.
Did you have any questions? No? Great, well, thank you for putting your hat in the race, and,
Thank you for.
do you have any questions for us? No? Good, thank you for coming in.
very much, have a nice evening.
Andrew, I'm gonna pass this over to you for 1 second.
Right, we're now looking for, Lillian Cruz.
So Lillian, I'm just gonna introduce Lillian. Lillian is a town employee. Our town employee that was representing the town staff on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because of their workload and their current position, had to resign from DEI. And we have put a letter out to all town employees, and Lillian has kindly responded to represent the staff. But I am waiting to see if there are any additional people by the end of next week. But Lillian was available this evening, I thought that she should come in and meet with the town.
And was it Jen
vote.
Tiger that
Yes.
couldn't do it?
Yes.
Yeah, very nice man, sorry he couldn't continue,
Yes.
but thank you for his service. And thank you for coming forward, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Mr. Vice Chair.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hello.
Tell us a little about you.
Nice to meet you, sure. I don't live in Scituate, I live in Weymouth, but I do work for the town of Scituate. I come from a home health care background, I worked in home health care for over 30 years. My education is, I have a degree in a bachelor's degree in human services and psychology. And I'm currently a graduate student at UMass Boston studying gerontology. So aging is my passion, so I accepted a position as a council on aging as the transportation coordinator almost a year ago now. So I have a passion for diversity and equity and inclusion. I've worked with very diverse staff in the past, actually recruiting and hiring them. I also have a complete understanding of what diversity means. Some people just think of maybe a cultural background or race, but actually diversity is much more. It's your age, it's your sex, it's your ability as well. And so I brought this unique perspective with me at the Council on Aging, and actually as the transportation coordinator, I noticed that we were discluding kind of some clients in this community. They were not able to access the van to come into the senior center because they had unique challenges. So what I did was I worked with the director, Linda Hayes, I created some initiatives actually to address those issues, and she did approve them. And so I rolled out a whole new initiative in May, and for instance, we had clients who had vision impairments and could not access a van safely, and I created van volunteers to help them on and off the van. We had people with mobility issues that were not in wheelchairs because we have wheelchair accessible vans, but maybe they had knee arthritis and couldn't climb up in the van. So now we provide transport chairs for them to ride up the lift. So I kind of look at like how can we include the most people coming to the senior center. Also, as part of my position, I have drivers who work under me, and I have seen an issue with their training from the town that I think should be addressed, and as representing the employees, I would like to do that. And that issue is that
We have annual compliance training, as most places do, and we recently completed some of that training. And myself and some of the staff noted that some of the questions were kind of difficult. The training was only offered online, and for my employees that work under me, I have older staff that are not really good at accessing a computer and doing computer training. I have a driver that has a language barrier. English is not his first language, so it was very confusing to him. He was not able to complete his training. And I also have a driver who has a learning disability. So I think sitting on this committee, I'd like to bring attention to that, and I think that we could change the compliance training so that if we have employees that may only have high school diploma or language barriers or different specific need, that could be addressed.
Great.
Thank you.
No, I mean, for actionable,
Yeah.
we're up to questions, that was.
Well, I don't have any questions.
I am a person of action, that's what they tell me.
This is, I think a lot of people think of the diversity equity committee as being sort of more policy or, trying to make cultural changes. But what you're talking about, very practical and very much, I love things that can be done and that you see a problem and you can give a solution. And I think you'd be a great addition. I'm very happy you're a town employee.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
for coming
am as
forward.
well. I am. And I want to say that I actually served the Scituate community for over 20 years in home health care. A lot of my clients were in this community. Some of them remember me when they came into the senior center. They were like, I know you from.
Where do I know you from?
Exactly. So I love the community, and I'm trying to convince my daughter, because I want to downsize my house at Weymouth, that I really would love to live in Scituate because it's such a wonderful community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, can you live in Weymouth and serve on?
Yes, because it's.
Yes. We figured that out.
Yeah.
Good. Karen? Do you have any more?
Otherwise, we have to annex.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much for coming forward. I think it's totally hit it on the head. I mean, the point of this is to find practical solutions to do better as a community, but also specifically our governance and how we manage our employees and all that. So you've already exceeded without even beginning. So thank you.
Have you watched any of the meetings or gone to any of the meetings?
Not yet, I have, no.
A lot of information.
Yes.
They're doing great things. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you very much for your time.
Have a good night.
Good night.
The next one is the sister city for Cape Verde. And actually, you know what, before I do that, I see Andrew came in. I'm gonna ask him to come up real quick for conservation. I think we made a little on the schedule. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Good, so let's go back, what number is conservation again? 12. So Andrew is an existing member. This was your first term. And you're looking to be renewed for another term. Great. So tell us about your experience and why you want to stay.
Yeah, come to the end of my first term, 3 years. Lost track of time, I think, because it was a little disrupted. Moved to virtual, but I've enjoyed it. It's definitely a role, a number of resource areas in the town we manage that there's a lot to learn. You jump in and learn as much as you can right off the bat, but it is a role you get better with over time. I feel like so hitting my stride now, feel as equipped as I have yet, and I've seen the value of it.
Any reason, like specific reason why you want to stay out? Is there a project or a goal or something that you're looking for to accomplish in the next 3 years?
Yeah, so I mean, in addition to sort of the hearings and continuing to contribute to those, I've jumped in on some of the agricultural work. We made some good progress out in the field, and Water Street sort of coming on now to figure out how to manage those. worked to begin to develop contracts to make sure those are cared for. Some engagement with community gardening and that sort of work, funding for projects that happen to as well. So definitely a lot of unfinished work that I'd love to see completed.
Great. Andy, you want to?
No, that was my question, it's interesting, specific, so.
Aaron?
No, I sat in on last night, part of last night's meeting, and we had an earlier applicant. Singing the praises of the commission, I have to say, there's a chair of, you hit on the point of, there's a steep learning curve on this. And your contributions have been really helpful, so thank you for supporting, that work. And, this is still trying to balance all these great people who, are helping us. Glad to understand.
Well, I'll just say I appreciate the work you did on the out field. I know we had a lot of questions about it and you had to do a couple of iterations of it to get it through. I'm assuming that their COVID has sort of stopped some of that initiative and you're probably lucky you didn't do much this year because of the drought.
The drought would not have helped, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few more things to iron out. The big pieces are in place.
And you would like to still carry that
Yeah.
program forward?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Great. Andrew, can you remind me, what do you do for a living?
I work in a nonprofit for an organization called Conceptual
Draw through one. Yep, I don't have any other specific questions. Just to recap, there's 2 positions. Yours and Penny positions are up for renewal, and there are a few people, probably Greg and Patrick, that are interested in getting on board as well. So we will figure that out and either vote tonight or vote next meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, back to Sister City Cape Verde. So I've got a bunch of names on here. Who is actually here for the role? Because I don't want to have it. So 1,
There's 6 people.
there's 6, and they're all here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. Why don't we bring you up in groups of 2?
Semi-speed dating.
Yeah, we'll go a little slow pace. So why don't we start with Keith and Kelly?
And just, excuse me, Mr. Chair, when they're speaking, they need to speak into the microphone.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just so the public can hear them.
Great, so we already heard a little about you. All right, great. We know Kelly. Kelly, why don't you start and just tell us a little bit of background, why you want to do this, and is there anything specific that draws you to this? It's a new committee, right? It's,
Yes. That's the exciting part.
you can pull that, just pull that closer.
As you know, I'm a member of the Beach Commission currently. I've been doing that for a year and a half, and I really enjoyed that time. I've been doing it time of year. I was very excited to see this committee being formed. I thought there was a need for it for a long time. I have a lifelong love of learning about culture, languages specifically. And I really like a chance to learn more about the culture of Cabo Verde. And especially its history here in Scituate. I love history and how to make its future even more a part of the vibe of our community. One thing that I really love is that we came to be known for our Cabo Verdean festivals annually. I mean, that would be a fun thing.
Yep.
People travel here for Heritage Days, we have a real chance to have a whole new network in Scituate.
Could you speak up a little more? I just can't hear you, sorry.
I'm so sorry, I'm a
That's
soft
all right.
talker anyway.
The air conditioning is fine.
Yeah.
Which is like.
She was mentioning just a festival, if you can.
Which festival were you talking about? That's what I wasn't catching.
Oh, I would like us to begin one.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'd like Scituate to become this eventual. You're asking for one overarching goal that is a
Great.
Right. And maybe a heritage station, right?
Oh, I said we're known for our Heritage Days.
Oh, I get you, yeah.
We can have a whole nother weekend of people traveling here to visit us, that's all.
Great. Keith, why don't, if you can pull the mic over
sure,
and
yeah.
tell us little bit about you, your background, and why you want to do this.
Yeah, sure. So like my wife Christine mentioned, we moved here about 6 months ago, and we live over on Country Way, so it's in Greenbush. I think one of the first things we noticed about living here was the Cape Verdean population that's in that neighborhood. And so when the time came to see committees being formed, we saw this committee was new this year, and so it seemed really exciting. My academic background is aerospace engineering, but I'm really interested in cross-cultural communication. My parents, I'm a first generation American, my parents came here from different countries, so it's kind of like a natural interest for me, and also very interested in languages. As a former employer, I actually chaired a diversity affinity group, and that was a really successful experience in terms of my own personal enjoyment of it, but also in terms of fundraising and event planning. And so my background also really lends itself well to logistics and optimization. So I think things like event planning or exchange programs would be a natural interest for this committee. I also have applied to other committees as well, so if there's a fit in a different committee that you guys like better, I'm certainly open to considering that as well.
What other ones did you apply to? I can sure it's written right in front of me.
Sister City Cape Verde, Sister City France, which would love to have him also going. And Historical Commission, which there are currently no openings.
Great. And then I think when you mentioned the sustainable South Shore, the talk about the solar panels, it didn't interest my wife, but as an engineer, that piqued my interest as well.
We can throw up on sustainable South Shore too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, good. Awesome, thank you. Questions? Anyone have a question for either Kelly or Dave?
No.
So maybe we could start to populate this.
Yes.
Yeah, so
new
the
initiative.
committee, it's just a little background, it's a 10-member committee, and it's a 2-year term. And I think we have, how many applicants? We have 8? Something like that.
We have 8 applicants, 2 cannot make it this evening.
So I'll ask you both, so I was expecting a lot of people from Cape Verde to come and want to be on this committee, and neither of you fit that thought that I had. So what attracts you to, I mean, you also asked for Susie on the brief, but what attracts you to the Cape Verdean aspect of it as opposed to the Irish one or the French one?
Attracted to both, actually, the French and the Cameroonian, but it being new, I guess, that was like informed.
Right.
No rules, no limits.
True, right? Anything to add?
Yes, I mean, sitting here, I think I also applied to the France one as well, so I think the international aspect of both of them appealed to me, and just Cape Verde, the committee being new as well, just being able to set things up from the ground floor was appealing.
Right, yeah, and certainly in the early stages, it takes many different skill sets, you know, not just knowledge of the culture or whatever, but actually, like you said, logistical type stuff, so it's great. Great, no other questions?
No.
Great, thank you both.
Well, we got it.
Very good.
Okay, so is Maria and Angela? Hi Maria.
I'm you.
Angela, how are you?
Yes, so you.
I think the last time I saw you was at the French, which was Susan Aubry?
Yes, I was
Yeah.
here, yeah. But I was here afterwards with the DI committee
Oh, right.
to petition for the sister cities.
True. So we'll start the same questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to do this. And we'll start with you, Maria.
Hi, thank you for having me this evening. My name is Maria Loban-Varden. I am been living in Scituate for 26 years. I'm originally from Cape Verde. I came when I was a young child and moved into Brockton area with my families. I graduated from Brockton High, attended Bridgewater State University for a social work degree, and obtained my master's at BU for social work, and obtained CADS in Bridgewater State. I currently have been working for Brockton Public School for the last 26 years as a school adjustment counselor, and I also run part of an aftercare program, which I've been doing that for 17 years, and it's a 11-month program. I actually just finished last Friday. And I am currently, I have 2 children, and they both have, are present in Scituate, have graduated, and married Joseph Andrade, which is a long time resident of the Andrade family. I've been in Scituate since the 1940s. Again, I've been living here for 26 years. I would like the opportunity to share the Cape Verde community more in Beach Institute. I do work in a lot of organizations that's in Brockton, that I'm part of, Cape Verde communities that I really would like to show that Institute also.
Great. Before I go, is there like one specific thing that you'd really like to start this committee in a certain direction? Like Kelly said, the festival was a great idea.
I think the historical piece of sharing the history of Cape Verde to more out there to the people, so and then be able to enrich the cultures.
I feel like I've given you guys my backstory, but I'm gonna do it again. Thank you for allowing me to apply to be on the committee, and once again, thank you, Select Board, for creating the Sister City, Cape Verde, and local, and celebrating the rich history that the Cape Verdeans and Scituate have had for generations, so I appreciate that. I was born in Cabo Verde, and I appreciate Kelly saying Cabo Verde. It's very good of her. But I grew up in Scituate, so being on this committee is a wonderful opportunity for myself to connect to towns that I love dearly. The town that I was born in, and the town that I was blessed to call my home, and have lived for over 50 years with my parents, my children, and now my grandchildren. So again, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to share our culture, and I do see the interest, not only for those of us that are from Cape Verdean heritage, but just in general in the community. During Heritage Days, we had a booth, and I was so pleasantly, I shouldn't say surprised, because there's always been an interest, it's always been, welcoming community, but many people asking questions about Cape Verde and the Sister City committee, and one elderly woman, I told her that there's going to be a band in Heritage Days. The following day, she said she was the heat was too much, so she probably wouldn't be back, and I told her, well, what if we did something at the new senior center? So that would be something that I would really hope the committee could do for the seniors from Cape Verde, as well for the seniors that aren't, but just in the community. I told her she'd be a nice air-conditioned room. She said she had never been to the senior center, which, being on the DI committee, we want to make sure that we're promoting that to all residents. It's a beautiful facility. So in addition to my personal interests and motivation to be on the committee, professionally, I work in client services. I've been in the corporate sector for over 30 years. I work with a diverse group of clients, have developed wonderful client relationships, and I work with the various departments to keep our clients satisfied in our book of business. So I think that skill set also will help in developing our relationship with the folks in the Southern Carolina. So I would be honored to be on the committee.
Great. Thank you. I'll move it on. You guys can hear me, sorry.
Just real quick, I just want to publicly thank you for your leadership on making this committee actually happen. You were there from the beginning, and I'm so excited for this day where we're actually populating the community. So it's going to be great. So thank you, both of you, but Elizabeth.
Can't possibly be a grandmother. It's not possible. Anyway, thank you for the work you've done on the diversity committee too. That's not an easy thing to do, to start a committee like that, and the progress you've made has been impressive. I'm very excited about this particular committee, because, I will say that there's been a little bit of pushback about Heritage Days lately. But I think Heritage Days is evolving, and I think we should be celebrating more than just Scituate's an old town. I think we should be celebrating the various communities within our community. So I think it's great that we can work with this. Do either of you have any connections in Cape Verde that we can jumpstart or use to get?
Yes, yeah, it's been, Maria and I are good friends. And you were talking about, I actually took the press release and translated it into Portuguese. And I personally delivered it to some residents in town. Residents that are intelligent, wonderful, senior citizens, that in their day, they probably wouldn't have, felt comfortable approaching the select board and asking for a sister city. I know they have the skill set and the intelligence to do it, but I think there's still some reservation because, I was nervous when I first came to a select board meeting and it took people encouraging me to go and apply for the DI committee. So, but when they read the press release in Portuguese, which my sister had a QC because Google Translate is not perfect, they were really touched. And they were just like, I love this town. I think I love it more now. So those people in the community, although they don't feel comfortable being on the committee, we're our liaisons to this committee. We will make sure that we bring them in and we take their knowledge. I was born there, but I don't remember Cape Verde. My sister goes back every year. She's a Scituate resident. She's in her 70s. She was very close to applying to the committee, but she was a little nervous. So I told her, well, you could be, you can help and be a liaison with the committee. So great job. So,
thank you.
Interesting.
No, I mean, I love hearing you talk about the history, because I think this person, I'm most ignorant of that aspect of the history of Scituate, and I think exploring that, I think a lot of folks would be excited to make those connections, the families that have been here, and it's just great. So.
The only thing I would add is great connections, the time commitment. So getting off his feet is gonna take time and energy and manpower and brain power. You guys both sound very busy. Is there?
Yeah, she just dropped off her youngest in college, so she's great.
Well, Tony, what they say is when you want something done, you ask a busy person, so.
Thank you both for coming.
That's what they say on thank you, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, we have two left. Bill, Antoinette,
Yes. You wanna get fancy, yes.
Antoinette, I'm sorry.
No, yes,
They could say it.
Yeah. Should have helped. How are you?
I'm fine, yourself.
Thanks for coming in. So I'm gonna ask you both the same question. Tell us a little bit about you and why you wanna do this.
Hi, I'm Antoinette Bowers. Thanks for having me here today. I was born and raised in Scituate, Massachusetts, but both my parents are Cape Verdean. We've been here forever. So my great grandfather was a World War II veteran. He's buried at Union Cemetery. My grandparents came here after him, and then my parents. So my mother is still a resident of Scituate. She's been here probably over 48 years. And I'm excited about this. I went through the Scituate high school, Scituate school system, everything. I've lived in 12 different states and then one other country. And whenever I come back, this is always home, right? So it's always be here. And during the pandemic, I left California and moved back to Scituate, stayed with my mother for a little while with Angela, got me involved in some local community things where I was like, I would have never thought, that I could be involved in anything in the community here. And so I'm just really excited because while I'm not a resident of Scituate right now, I moved to Weymouth. My mother is still here and I want her to be able to participate and be involved and go to the senior center and not be worried or scared or feel like she doesn't fit in. I want future generations, in case I ever do move back here, to, we didn't have any of this growing up here. And so to be such a big community within this community, but not feel like you were part of the community. I think this is an awesome opportunity to get involved, to be part of something new, and just kind of bring that history of we've been here forever. Just like the Irish community, I think someone was saying that back there. I'm like, we've been here just as long, and so it would just be awesome to share that with everybody in Scituate. So I'm excited.
I'm just like Miss Barrows right over here. Everything she said pretty much mirrors myself. I was born and raised in Scituate, Massachusetts. My grandparents moved here back in the early 1900s. And so we've been here for a long, long time. So I was born and raised here. I went to school, UMass Amherst, graduated, came back, and raised my children here, married and raised the children here, live on Stockbridge Road, So all three of my children graduated Scituate High along with myself, graduated college, they moved out. So, now I have a little bit of extra time, not much, but extra time with an empty nest. So I have been, providing, community service, and I've been, while they were growing up in Scituate, I was actively involved in their programs, whether it was in the school or coaching sports, or coached them all three, 2 sons and a daughter, all various sports. So as I they're out of the house, and I have some extra time working from home. I currently work from home, so now is the time to re-engage myself in community activities. So what I would love to do ideally is to get back to the community as it gave to me, because born and raised and growing up in Scituate and raising the Scituate, I love this town. I want to do the same things to make sure that my children come back here all the time to the house, beaches. They're embedded here. And especially with the Cape Verdean communities, I born and raised down in Greenbush, a lot of family, friends still there. So what I would like to not only bring back or have volunteer service in my contributions back to the community, I also want to promote DE&I within the town of Scituate. And I do that currently with my current employer. I'm actively involved in their DEI committee all the time, and I would like to bring that, if possible, to this organization, into this group. And the other one is to promote Cape Verdean awareness, not only the history, the culture within the town of Scituate. It runs deep, and I would like to, be part of this committee so we can educate the town on the the heritage of Cape Verdeans in Scituate. It goes back, even my grandparents, when they were here in the 20s, they started here, and my mother, God love her, she's still 92 years old, living in Stockbridge Road, and still actively, and tells a ton of stories about Cape Verdeans in the earlier, when she was here. And she came from the Cape Verde Islands when she was 18, and then she, the roots were all here, and she's been here ever since. And we established our family, friends, all in Scituate, and come back, and it's a wonderful community. To me, it's a safe haven. I love Scituate, and I want to open the cultural awareness, the Cape Verdean awareness, to bring that, because I've done that when I was at UMass Amherst committee there, but I want to hopefully to bring that here, because I do feel that it's desperately needed. So when Angela approached me with this idea, I said, not a problem. I kind of hemmed and hawed and said, okay, is my workload going to account for this? All right, well, my kids are gone. I think it's a perfect opportunity for me to try to get back into providing community service again. So I would, honestly appreciate helping out in any way I can. And thank you for your time.
Aaron, any questions?
Answered it all.
All I can say is I'm so stoked that you and I get to be liaison to this committee as you get up and going, so. Thank you so much for raising your hand and volunteering your time.
No, history, hopefully.
Right, so I'll make one comment. So the success of this program relies on the energy of the people that are starting. Right, it relies on the 6 of you volunteers and anybody else that gets involved. And I see that in this, all of you are smiling, right? There's these huge smiles on all of your faces and there's this passion. And I think that this committee has, you know, the opportunity, at least as successful as the other two have had. So thanks for coming in, thanks for participating, and it's not easy, but I think you guys are gonna love it, so. And we are either gonna vote tonight or at our next meeting for positions. And I think there's at least 2 more applicants, and sometimes people, a lot of people watch this show. Yeah.
We were on TV? No.
I think we had 20 the other night. But it may, other people may see the passion here and want to participate as well, so we may vote at the next meeting, I suppose. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Is Mary Lou here? No, she's not here.
Mary Lou and Hope cannot get it tonight, we'll reschedule them for future. Thank you.
Thank you all.
We have to appoint the UMass grad now. We're gonna send it. That's UMass grad, that's the.
Absolutely, go UMass. Go Minutemen.
All right,
That concludes the interviews.
yes. It's going pretty good. The next discussion vote is, I asked them to put on the agenda for last week is to discuss the money that Toll Brothers gave us for fuel. So you may remember when we were working with Toll Brothers to mitigate them moving into the space up there, that they offered a lot of things. One of them was to build a field on Waltuck Elementary School, and then at some point in the project, they didn't want to get involved with it, they just gave us money instead. So we have $400,000 in some sort of fund in Nancy's desk somewhere.
It's under her mat.
I think we chance.
And the one, and it's, right now it's allocated towards fields, I really don't think Toll Brothers cares what we do with it. So I wanted to bring that up to discussion, see what the board wanted to do with it. I had some ideas. One of them was actually in the backup that Nancy gave us. In that agreement, it said that there was $200,000 also for bathrooms on Egypt Beach. And I don't know if did we ever get that money?
No, I think, if
I
I read the contract today, it started out with $200,000 for potentially that Egypt Beach thing.
Yeah.
Plus the building of the field. And the field, the entire contract is attached to the document.
Right.
But then something happened, and if I recall, the field was not big enough to be able to build a regulation soccer field, and therefore there was an addendum made to the contract. But it looks to me like the addendum gives us a little more leeway, that we don't have to just do Egypt Beach, or we don't have to.
Yeah.
So
So I think you're right,
yeah.
I think they just said, we don't wanna deal with any of this, here's the money, do what you wanna do with it.
Yeah, so the 200 plus building the field turned out to be $400,000 in cash.
So a thought that I had, and I know Dan Fenley from CBC has come to me a couple of times and said, are you gonna allocate this money to the JV baseball field? I said, we don't know, we haven't discussed it yet, and so that's why I put it on the agenda. And what I was hoping to do with the money is take some of it and allocate it to putting some bathrooms on the beach something. And I wanna open up to you guys to see if you had interest in that, and if not, if you have other projects you may see to put that to. I don't believe that CBC needs this money to, the JV baseball field is gonna happen regardless of this money. They have the money to fund that as well. So that's
Well, may I?
me teeing it up.
Yes.
Yes.
So I would just like to point out that on a fairly regular basis, we say to CPC, can't you find money somewhere else? So this is one of those somewhere else places. I personally believe that any amount of money we can give to CPC, allocate to CPC for this field, is money that is good. Are there other needs? Yes, and I do think there are other needs in terms of recreation. I personally am not in favor of bathrooms at beaches, but that's just my personal feeling. So that's what I have to say about that.
And, so I'll say, I think the spirit of the money was for field improvement. So one of the thoughts that I had for that, for large, was talking about water capture and field improvements that you can do in all the different various fields. And that does not take up all 400,000. But to think about water capture devices to make sure that it's not a dust bowl over there by the gates, it's not a dust bowl at the new field, it's not, wherever we're gonna go, you can actually help improve more than just one field with that. And if that's 200,000, we decide to do a bathroom, I'm fine with bathrooms, I'm fine with giving the money to CPC. But I think it's important for us to kind of, and also when we think of Greenbush, there's another field, we don't have LED lights, we're talking electricity costs. So there's energy savings, water savings, and still, and improve fields, that seems like a win-win-win. I love bathrooms, I think that's a great idea. I think give the money to CPC, I think that's a great idea. I'm not gonna jump in front of a train and stop either one, but I think at least some of it should go towards improving fields.
I agree with Andrew that having a strategic plan to achieve more than one goal can work. So the water saving initiatives to enhance our fields is a good one. We know that this year. I think CPC exists to help vet these ideas. They are in the process of vetting the JV field right now. To the extent that we can help support that, it will free up money down the road for the next thing that comes down. So the system's in place. So allocating some of these funds to that project doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It's already been thought through and it's on the horizon. And if there'll be more money in the rec field for the next thing we want to do. Which could be bathrooms at beach. I would like to see the beach commission come up with a full plan of what we need to do to enhance those. And it's being Peter to, what's the expression? Steal from Peter to pay Paul. These are funds available for us to use. We have systems in place in which to vet ideas and which to spend it, and I think that if we work with those systems, it's only gonna, the downstream will be beneficial. But I do think that we really need to start really making some adding some requirements that that really address some of our scarce resources, like water for fields and things like that. So to the extent we can addend things with that, I think if this can be a carrot for that, that's a great idea.
Great. So the only thing I'd say about CPC, I think typically, I feel like the money that they wanted to invest was not from another bucket of the town. It was supposed to be from an interested party that was involved in, hey, I wanna fix the high school team is gonna do a fundraiser and raise 10 grand to get buy-in to it, not necessarily saying let's take it from that other pocket over there. I think they're all great ideas. We don't have to, I think the only thing we probably have to vote within the next couple of meetings is if we're gonna actually put that to the high school field. We could not vote that, and if we wanted to just allocate some of it to CPC, period. So I don't think it has to be that project.
Can we do that? Just can we enhance the CPC funding through?
Nancy, can we do that if we wanted to?
Do we need it down to vote for that?
Or there could be another project.
400,000 is under your control, so that's up to you.
So if we were to decide that we want to reduce what CPC is spending, by 200,000, that would just be on the.
Yeah, I would just ask you to take a vote so that I can cap, say, take $400,000 out of their budget. Say, okay, so they don't understand.
If I
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think I'm unsympathetic to bathrooms at beaches, but there is an issue with staffing those, and there's a security issue related to those. And we do have porta potties, which may not be everyone's first choice, but in the event of a real emergency, we have facilities at our beaches. I'm just really concerned. I mean, we had this discussion when we did the high school field about putting the staff rooms in some of those, I don't know which it was, the ticket office or whatever. And they do need to be maintained, and at least with porta potties, you have a company that comes in and out. So I'm not, I would love to have beach houses at our beaches, honestly, with a little snack bar and, you know, little bathroom facilities, but they need to be manned, or woman, or whatever the phrase is these days.
The advantage of the tiki that you want is the towns around us that have beach houses. The concessionaire runs the bathrooms.
Right.
Responsible for those. Some other towns down the Cape, it's maintained by the town. So the other question I would ask, sorry, Mr. Chair, but if you wanna have a different use besides ball fields, then the board should instruct me to get in touch with Toll Brothers to ask for amended agreements so we could use the money for
Recreation.
other recreational uses, you know, you put a cooling but not limited to a list of things.
The other thing that I've seen in some communities is the lifeguards are the ones that open and then close it, so it's open during the times things like that. I'm not picking you, Ann, with that expression.
No eye rolling.
Penny Scott, Private Safety Field Road. This takes me back 70+ years in town. We used to have real bathrooms down line at the big parking lot. It was a concrete building, you had the men's room, you had the ladies' room, you had two shower heads outside. Back then, it was great. You got into probably the 60s, 70s, vandalism started. It was, you came into another era where kids got into more mischief, a little more, and we finally took them out, is what I'm trying to say. I just would hate to see the funds spent for something like that, a structure, and have it be vandalized. I mean, the water problems, hey, they can vandalize it, we can go clean it up and see that's very simple. But I just, unless you could staff the bathroom, have somebody there, make sure it stays clean, and make sure it isn't being vandalized. But other than that, I mean, it just didn't work, and today, I'll tell you, the water park put down North Scituate, the first weekend it was there, the kids loaded it up with beer cans. You know, so but that was an easy fix for the guys to come and, you know, I don't envy them for doing it. But I just, I don't think it's a good idea because obviously I don't think we have the funding to staff, have somebody there daily, you know, and, the porta pots are needed. Protect those.
Ann?
Ann Burbine, Connecticut Road. One of the best items in the Mariner was the porta potty float off Miami Beach. I mean, that did happen. The thing is, this was mitigation control. And I really feel very, very strongly through that mitigation that it should go for what it was intended, which was to do. And I know that we can agree to disagree, Tony, and that's fine.
No, I just think it actually was to go to fields and bathrooms on Egypt Beach, because that's in the contract.
The 200,000 ultimately went for a water study. There was 600,000 total.
Right.
We should have done a million, but that's me. At any rate, you're gonna do whatever you wanna do, but I am just really, that 400,000 for this JV ball field would be wonderful. It really would be.
Steve?
I'd say the worst thing about porta potties is that no one's cleaning them enough. It would seem to me for a small amount of money, if you took a little bit of that money and had them come in and clean them much more often, people would be fine with them. Because everyone, you open the door and you don't know what you're gonna find, because they've been there for a long time. So I think if you had a program where the company was coming out more often, I think people would say, hey, these are clean places to go. That's all right, they may not vandalize them as much if they're in good shape. And maybe that's not enough. I mean, I've used the one down at the Driftway, and if they clean it daily, there's a big problem. A lot of people in town using it, so I don't know how often they're in doing all of them, but the ones I've seen, they're not real clean. I go to Duxbury Beach all the time, and they clean the ones on Duxbury Beach, and I don't know what their schedule is, but they seem to work fine, and the people tend to use them more without grimacing when they open the door. And if that's a better situation than building permanent buildings out there, they could try something like that and see if it works for a short money.
Thank you. Any other comments? So I think the two things we could do now, and Laura's not here to weigh in either, but we need to decide probably by the next meeting if we want to allocate internet to the JD field. And then if we do, we want to do something different, and there's no time constraint on this, just have Jim just get a letter from Toll Brothers allowing us to have extended use of that road. Alright, so why don't we pick up that discussion next week, see if Maura has anything to add.
And we'll be in time for the warrant, the article.
Yeah. I don't have further, I don't know why we would.
Part of the motion. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out, it seems like that's not the intent of getting money.
No, I just want to make sure that if we want to do it, that we have the ability.
We can make the change on it.
Yeah.
Great. All right, next topic is assign the warrant articles.
Mark gets all of them, right? Because she's not here. Mara has to know.
In front of you, you have a copy of the warrant that Nancy provided today. And this list of the warrant articles as well, if you want to read down this. And which ones are on the consent agenda.
So we have so Article 1, I guess, is the biggest one, more than likely. Anyone especially interested in doing that one?
To me, it's who's doing the presentation? Are we doing, what's the run of show on that? Are we gonna do a full-blown presentation? We don't know yet.
I mean, I would, if I was gonna do a presentation, it'd be very similar to what I did tonight.
Yeah, that's good, yeah.
It's really up to the board, we'll have one ready. I can do it, whoever presented can do it. The consultants will be available, they'll be there to answer questions, but one of us will do the presentation. It's really up to you guys.
If I could suggest that Jim did the presentation, then I would suggest that we're not gonna vote on this at this point, we're done, right? We voted in favor of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we talked about Andrew as the liaison to the water treatment, the water resources committee, and as well as, frankly, we started down this road a few years ago. We would have gotten there eventually, but maybe not as fast as we did because Andrew rallied the troops. So I'm proposing that, Andrew, that you do the presentation so everyone can see. It was concise, I think it hit all the points, And that, you know, if you wanna say why the select board, unless the chair wants to do it,
No,
which would
I would
certainly
be
be.
honored, but I'll always defer to the chair decision.
I mean, all of us can get up and speak however we want, so it's, if you want to do the presentation, if that's, I mean, Karen makes a good point, or the, you know, the liaison of that, and.
I would love to do it, yeah.
Alright. Great, so I'll have Andy do that. And then the unpaid bills, I can do that. And the reconciliations, I think I'm supposed to do those for a couple. These aren't, all these,
They're all consent.
they're all consent?
Yeah.
Yeah, you have
This one,
you have a chart in front of you.
yeah, so 1, 2, 3, and 4 are consent.
So I can be prepared to do 2, 3, and 4. Capital plan?
I could do that as a liaison.
Okay. Community preservation?
Liaison,
The zoning?
Was that when I was out, why was it 301, something abstained?
Yeah, Laura had to be for the business.
Oh, right. And I was there.
So, who's, do you want to do charter? Is that,
Oh, yeah, I'd like to do charter.
so let's, we're going to do charter.
I'm the liaison to, planning, but since I'm doing community preservation,
Yeah.
maybe someone else.
Why don't we have more do those? Is she the liaison for zoning?
No,
Yeah.
me.
No.
Who's you last?
She told me that she was excited to talk about this.
The setbacks and the.
And then,
Well, really, the planning board, it's their, whatchamacallit, it's their.
They have to explain it.
They'll explain it, so.
But-
She'll just have to make our motion.
Right.
She abstained because she wasn't here at the meeting though.
Oh, that's an awesome.
I can do
So
those, I'll
she
do
didn't
those.
hear the presentation,
That's
just
very
so
good.
you're aware.
I'll do those.
Tony gets the.
Tony, those aren't controversial at all.
And then, Maura can do 14. And then these other ones will probably pass.
Some more 14 on the
Yeah,
special legislation,
yeah.
please.
And then,
You can do the resolve, you can do 10. Or maybe Andrew could do revolving funds.
I'll do 10. What's the reacceptance?
Oh, yeah, it's your favorite topic.
I'll do that. Who wants to do that? Why don't we say, Andrew does that one and Maura does the last 12 and 13. So if everything passes in the consent agenda, you'll do 1, you'll do capital, you'll do CPC, I'll do the zoning, you'll do charter, and Maura will do the,
Great.
Good, everyone good with that?
Yeah.
And I just think, depending on the turnout for the water, we should all be prepared to say the talking points.
Right.
Great. So right, now we've got, discussion votes on one-day liquor license.
Select board approve the one-day wine and malt license for Simply Good Catering for a private event on September 18, 2022, from 10:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. at the Scituate Maritime Center. And further, that the board approve Superior Servers for a private event on October 15, 2022, from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. at the Scituate Maritime Center.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous, 4-0. On the appointments, there's some that we are not going to do because we're having more interviews.
You have a separate document here. It's an executive action, printed by you.
So the beach commission one, I think we can probably vote that one.
Yep.
Do you want to make a motion for that?
Move to appoint Keith Dahlstrom to the Situate Beaches Commission for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest law online training program is completed within 3 days.
Second?
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor? Aye, it's unanimous. So we'll hold off on waterways, we've got more interviews there. We did interview, conservation, all of those applicants. No, there was one more, right?
No, everybody was interviewed.
Right.
Patrick was interviewed at the 7/2016.
So I'm gonna suggest that we wait on that for Laura.
Okay.
We'll do that at the next meeting. Cultural Council, I think we can probably vote that one.
Move to appoint Christine Becker to the Cultural Council for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second?
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Do we need to reappoint Susan's?
Yes.
Scavo
Yes.
Gallagher? Okay. Move to reappoint Susan Scavo Gallagher and Betty Tapaction to the Cultural Council for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest law online training is completed within 30 days. Motion by second unanimous vote.
Second by Mr. Goodrich, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
And at the last meeting, you interviewed Dan Fogarty. You asked him to get back in touch with him to see if he was interested in being on the cultural council as well, and he is. So he's asked to be appointed to the cultural council as well. You appointed him to the Commission on Disabilities on August 9th.
But we have plenty of spots on cultural council, right?
Yes, plenty of slots, and it doesn't take up a whole lot of time. That's why he's interested.
Do you want to vote that?
Yeah. Move to appoint Dan Fogarty to the Cultural Council for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second by Mr. Goodrich, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we want to vote the coastal advisory, do we want to hold off on that next week?
They're all on here, everybody, and she's the only applicant for the new.
So we have one opening and one candidate.
One opening and everybody else is being removed, which is on the next page.
Voted?
Move to appoint John Blanchard to the Coastal Advisory Commission for a term of 1 year, or until a successor is named and completion of conflict of interest on online training programs in favor of 30 days.
Second?
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Want to do the reading?
So my question about that is, have we interviewed all those people?
Well, you don't need to interview if there's nobody up for those open positions.
Okay.
Well, that's how I interpreted what you told me at the last meeting.
I'm just trying to clarify with kind of.
I mean, if there are no openings or if there are.
No other candidates.
Right.
So there are no other candidates, we have one opening, we just appointed her. Got it, okay.
That's how I interpreted it.
I will say I was at their meeting last week, they didn't have a quorum unfortunately, but the chair did bring up to me on our way out that she would like to think that they would be 3-year appointments, and I think it went back to when we were trying to deal with the seawall committee plus this new committee, that I think the thinking was at the time, that let's just do it 1 year. But I did say to her that if we were to go to 3 years, we want to do it on a staggered basis. So some people will get 1 year, some will get 2, some will get 3, so that eventually we'll be reappointing people or appointing people.
I've talked to Cornhole and said that they would need to revise their charge.
So they do
Present it to
that
the
and bring it to
select
us.
board. Yes.
Okay. So for the purposes of tonight, move to reappoint Jill Lamoureux, James Canavan, Jonathan Grant, Stephen Tripp, Matthew Ficken McKinley, Chief John Murphy, and Kevin Cafferty to the Coastal Advisory Commission for a term of 1 year until a successor is named and a completion of the conflict of interest law online training is completed within 30 days.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous.
The next one is the Cape, all the Cape Verde.
Well, we have the DEI one.
We're not gonna do that tonight because we have asked people to submit their applications through August 30th.
Great, so we'll hold off on that one, and we're gonna hold off on the, we've got more interviews.
Well, DEI, we have less people than.
Yeah, I got it. So more people may apply when they hear about it. I don't know, do you wanna vote them?
Where's DEI?
It was,
Not DEI, I'm sorry, DEI.
Okay.
Fair.
Cape Verde.
Okay.
Do we wanna, we have 2 more people to interview, I mean, there's no real reason to do it until we get full committee.
Or not do it. And let
Well,
them get
unless
going.
more people, well, they're not starting till 11.
How many, I'm sorry, I keep. this should
There are
be
10
pages
openings, there were 6 people that came tonight to the interview.
And there are 10 openings? Right.
There.
And there's only a couple more that at least filed, but you gave them a little more time. Did we give them a little more time?
I think that unless people, we've given them more time, and I think we've gotten what we're gonna get, unless, as Tony mentions, more
Well,
people.
personally, I'd like to get them going.
I think they're anxious to get going from what they're
So I
telling me.
would be in favor of appointing them and then whoever the other 2 people, they come by and we still have space.
We definitely have plenty of space.
I just like
Well,
to
right,
notice that
right.
enthusiasm that I felt tonight.
We have 10 members on the charge, 6 applicants, 2 more coming in. That still leaves 2 openings, so people get moved. So I agree that, these folks are ready to go. Let them go.
You agree?
Yeah, I mean, they've shown the most enthusiasm, so let's get it going.
Make a motion.
Move to appoint Keith Becker, Kelly Bauer, Maria Lobo Andre, Angela Rivero Dre, Antonietta Barros, and William Lopes to Sister City, that's hard to say, Sister City Cape Verde Committee for a term of 3 years, or until a successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest law online training program is completed within 30 days.
So, second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion, do we want to stagger these?
That's not what the charge says.
Charge says
That's not what's done on the other sister city committees either.
It's all in, all out every 3 years?
Yeah,
Well, what happens is, people come and go.
drop in and drop
And
out.
it ends up getting staggered kind of on its own.
Is it 2 or 3 years? Because on the book it says 2 year.
Yeah, I think it's 2 years, I'm sorry, yes. So we'll have to amend that motion to 2 years.
As amended.
Thank you.
Second by Mr. Goodrich.
Yep, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. 4-0.
We don't have anyone else looking for that spot, do we?
No, we still have an opening. The person who applied for the opening, in addition to this renewal, withdrew his application because of the work commitments.
What's the name?
Bob Lorenzo reappoint cable. Move to reappoint Bob Lorenzo to the Cable TV Committee for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named and completion of the conflict of interest law online training program is completed within 30 days.
Second.
Second by Ms. Canfield, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous, 4-0.
Susan Kelly and Leslie James are up for renewal on Council on Aging. We don't want to go and stay there. They're both awesome.
Did we have any more?
You already appointed the only other applicant, at a previous meeting.
Yep.
So just renewing these two, we'll be all set.
And no one else has come forward?
No.
Okay.
Move to appoint Susan, to reappoint Susan Draven Kelly and Leslie James, Council on Aging for a term of 3 years until a successor's name, conclusion of her interested online training program in the 30 days of development.
Second by Mr. Goodrich. Further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. Right now, we're on the North River Commission, a 1-year term.
And Joby, after 15 years, has resigned. But he brought Adria on board several years ago to be able to fill his spot.
She's great.
Yes.
Motion. Yes.
Move to reappoint Adria Gallagher to the North River Commission for a term of 1 year until successor's name and completion of conflict of interest law online training program and has completed within 30 days.
Second.
By Ms. Conley, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Next one is the Shellfish Advisory. Want a motion for those that we didn't have any other people trying to be on it?
It would be hard to change horses.
Yeah.
Move to reappoint Susan Harris and Jeffrey Palmer to the Shellfish Advisory Committee for a term of 3 years until a successor's name and completion of conflict of interest online law training program is completed within 30 days.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conley, further discussion, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And the last one is the Widows Walk Committee. We had interviews for these, didn't we?
We have nobody interested in Widows Walk.
I think it's done apparently. Well done.
Number 39.
The two people resigned, we have openings that were advertised, but nobody applied. 4 openings.
So these are just the 4.
Renewals, correct.
Yeah.
But they
How
need
many do they need?
4 more.
So you need at least 5 for.
actually just 9 members, so 5 more.
Oh,
Well, actually,
because-
4 openings and 4 renewals.
And no additions. No additional.
But what do they need to function? Like it's Ian and Jack McGinnis, they're all, and Dan McGuigan, they're all, no, Dan isn't. Those 2 are voting members, so Ian and Jack.
No, Jack is an EDC representative. I don't know if he's a
Oh,
voting member, I
and
have
he's-
to
yeah.
read the charge.
Yeah.
Dan is
Well, why don't we
non
do these
voting.
4, because it looks like we need a bunch more anyway.
Move to reappoint Claudia Oliver, Susan DeCoste, Mark Joyce, and Maria Monaco to Widows Walk Committee for a term of 3 years until the successor's name and completion of the conflict of interest law online training program within 30 days.
Second.
Second by Ms. Conley for discussion, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. We may want to change the number, I mean, we needed 9 on that initially
Right.
for the clubhouse, we may want to trim that down to 5 or 7.
Okay, because I don't think it says up to. You were right.
All right.
But
The,
they need, the committee needs to bring in the revision of the charge to us, I think.
yeah. Liaison reports. Nothing?
Well, as I mentioned, I was at the coastal advisory meeting. So they're gonna do it in some.
Any correspondence?
Yeah, we do. Seventh annual Sunrise Vigil, for the International Overdose Awareness Day, that's gonna be on Wednesday, August 31st. Again, Sunrise Vigil, so it's gonna start at 5:45 a.m. It's a service open to anyone in all communities. It's an ecumenical, non-sectarian service, and it's sponsored with Social Peer Recovery and Scituate Fact. So again, it's going to be by the Lighthouse, August 31st, 5:45 a.m. Do not despair, Cosmos Cafe is going to be closed, but only for vacation, so
I'll be back.
you can call, you can get your extra crispy cheese pizza.
Delivered to the beach.
They'll be back September 12th. 13th, so August 29th and 13th, Cosmos. Did you want to mention this one?
As I mentioned earlier today, the town received notification from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Seaport Economic Council of an award of $367,000 for a comprehensive dredge permit project. And lovely note to our town administrator from the Lieutenant Governor.
Great, awesome work.
The only other thing we had was the Frank Snow municipal disclosure form that email.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. This, Mr. Vignani, will be a concert, just read the whole thing, all right? There'll be a no?
I mean, I can summarize it, Frank.
Yeah, you can just summarize it.
Frank just came before us to acknowledge the fact that he had done some work on some of these property in the past, but he still feels that he's no conflict of interest to hear him on the conservation commission. We don't vote on that, right?
No.
So again, conflict of interest is on the party who he could be conflicted to acknowledge. Great, can I have acceptance of the minutes?
Yeah, move to accept the minutes of the board meeting held August 9th, 2022.
Second by Ms. Conley, for the discussion, seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Unanimous, and lastly, a motion to adjourn and sign documents. Second by Mr. Goodrich, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good night, everybody.